My girlfriend cheated with her boss, and our friends knew. I walked away. She tried to ruin me, but karma struck back. They lost everything. This morning, my phone exploded with 32 missed calls. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The indicators were there, spread like breadcrumbs during the final months of our relationship. But after 3 years with someone, you tend to give them the benefit of the doubt. At least, that's what I was telling myself. It began with tiny things. Allison started working late more frequently, which is not uncommon during busy seasons. But then came the new perfume I didn't recognize, clothes I'd never seen before appearing in our wardrobe, and her phone suddenly becoming this hallowed object that was always within arm's reach. I've never been the jealous kind, but something felt strange. When I attempted to hug her from behind while she was texting, she would move away. How she'd walk out to accept calls while stating they were work-related. The frequent girls' nights with folks whose names I had never heard before. Last Tuesday, as I was folding clothes, her phone lit up on the coffee table. A message preview from someone named Jay appeared. I miss you already. Last night, the rest was cut off, but my stomach sank. I didn't want to be the person who snoops through his girlfriend's phone, but the universe appeared to be telling me to wake up. When she arrived home that night, I decided to be direct. She was in the kitchen, preparing a smoothie as if nothing were wrong. The sound of the blender filled our flat as I leaned against the doorframe to watch her. "Who's Jay?" I inquired as she finally switched it off. Her posture changed instantly. Her shoulders stiffened, but then she did something unexpected. She smiled. She smiled coldly and almost triumphantly, rather than her customary warmth. "Wondering when you'd finally catch on, Michael," she remarked, taking a sip from her glass. "Jay's my boss, and yes, I've been sleeping with him for the past 2 months." The nonchalant manner in which she said it felt like a slap. No guilt, no humiliation, only pride. "I needed a real man," she added, smirking. "Someone who knows what he wants and goes for it. Not someone who spends his weekends playing video games with Jacob and watching stupid movies." I stood there, pondering her words. After 3 years together, is this how she truly saw me? Through the shock, I felt something else rise. Not rage, but an odd sense of clarity. "Does Chloe know?" I inquired, remembering our mutual buddy who had introduced us. "Oh, she's known for weeks," Allison said, laughing. "Most of our friends know. They understand. Jay can actually provide a future, not just dreams and excuses." That stung harder than the cheating admission. These folks with whom we'd shared birthdays, holidays, and many dinners had all been watching this, most likely laughing behind my back. I took out my phone and entered the group chat with Jacob and Chloe. "Is that true? Did you all know?" Jacob's response arrived swiftly. "Bro, you're fantastic, but Allison deserves someone more experienced. Don't take this personally." Chloe joined in. "We did not mean to hurt you, but perhaps this is the wake-up call you need." I looked up from my phone to see Allison observing me with the same smirk on her lips. She was hoping for an explosion, drama, and a scene she could tell everyone about later. Poor, immature Michael is losing his calm. Instead, I smiled, a genuine smile that appeared to catch her off guard. Without saying anything, I walked to our bedroom, dug out my go bag, which I normally keep prepared for weekend getaways, and grabbed my laptop and keys. Allison was staring at me as I walked back through the kitchen, her smirk weakening slightly. "Where are you going?" she questioned. "Out," I answered simply. "And Allison, keep the apartment. I'm sure Jay can help with the rent." I heard her begin to say something as I closed the door behind me, but I didn't pause to listen. My phone was already vibrating with texts, most likely from our so-called pals attempting to justify themselves. As I drove away, I turned off my phone and felt something unexpected: relief. Sometimes losing everything reveals what you never had in the first place. Update 1. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who responded to my previous post. I never anticipated it to blow up like that. A lot has happened in the last week, and I'm still absorbing it. I've been staying in a modest motel on the outskirts of town. It's not the most glamorous place, but it's clean, and the owner, an older man named Pete, appears to be a nice guy. He even reduced the weekly rent by $20 after hearing my story. I turned on my phone after 2 days of silence, 32 missed calls and 47 text messages. The majority were from Allison, some from Jacob and Chloe, and a few from numbers I didn't recognize. What drew my attention, however, was the social media notification storm. Allison had been busy, very busy. Her Instagram story depicted a picture that I scarcely recognized. Apparently, I was a controlling, jealous boyfriend who watched her every movement. According to her posts, I emotionally tortured her for years, cut her off from friends, and threw a violent tantrum when she finally stood up for herself. Each post received hundreds of sympathetic responses, including some from people I thought were friends. What about the crown jewel? In a sad video, she claimed I had financially mistreated her by forcing her to divide all of our bills 50-50 while I hoarded my money. Rich, considering she earned more than I did and insisted on the arrangement herself. Then came a text from Gemma, a coworker I'd known for years. Hey, you might want to check your email. Something's going around the office about you. Sure enough, there was a company-wide email about creating a safe workplace environment, with a thinly veiled reference to recent troubling activities by specific workers. There were no names stated, but the timing was hardly subtle. I should have become angry. Perhaps I should have pushed back and shared my side of the story. Instead, I was curious. How far would she go? It turns out to be quite far. Yesterday, I went to our local coffee shop, which I assumed would be safe because Allison despised their coffee. Wrong. The barista, who had usually been kind, gave me a look as if I had attached to her shoe. Later, I discovered Allison had become a regular, telling her survival story with everyone who would listen. But this is where things become interesting. While retrieving some things from storage, I ran upon Juliana, Allison's alleged best friend. She appeared uneasy, peering around as if she was worried about being spotted chatting to me. You need to be careful, she said quietly. Jay isn't just her boss. His wife, she's connected. Like, really connected. And Allison's been telling her you're unstable. Dangerous, even. Why are you telling me this? Juliana's gaze flashed around again. Because this isn't the first time. Before you, there was another guy at work. Allison and Jay. They did the same thing to him. He ended up leaving town. That talk altered everything. I spent the night researching legal records, social media, whatever I could discover. It turns out the preceding man existed. Mark something. Allison disappeared totally from social media around the time she started at the company. This morning, I received a call from our landlord. Allison attempted to remove my name from the lease, alleging I had abandoned the property. When it didn't work, she informed him that I had been threatening her. He called to warn me. It turned out his sister had gone through something similar years before. But here's the real kicker. During all of this, I received a message request on Instagram from an account I did not recognize. The profile image was of a woman in her 40s, elegantly dressed and wearing costly jewelry. The message was simple. I believe we should discuss my husband and your girlfriend. Coffee tomorrow. It was signed by Mrs. J. I'm meeting her in an hour. Something tells me Allison's true guy story is going to get a lot more complicated. The weird thing is, watching Allison create this sophisticated web of lies, and seeing our friends take sides based solely on her word, is very liberating. Every hateful message, every phony tear, and every fabricated narrative only reinforces what I already knew. I am not losing anything worth keeping. Update 2, sorry for the delayed update, the last 2 weeks have been crazy. What about the coffee meetup with Mrs. J? Game changer. It turns out that she's been accumulating evidence for months, not only about Allison and her husband, but about a larger pattern of behavior inside the corporation. Remember how Juliana mentioned the person who had left town? He was not the first. Mrs. J has documented at least 3 similar incidents in the previous 5 years, with young employees becoming connected with her husband and then assisting in the removal of anyone who could expose them. What is the difference this time? Mrs. J had finished playing quietly. She had texts, emails, expense records, and security footage from the workplace parking garage. But she wanted one more thing, public visibility. This is where the yearly corporate party came in. I didn't intend to attend, why would I? Mrs. J had other ideas. Sometimes, she reminded me, the best retribution is simply letting people show their true colors. The party was held at a luxury downtown hotel. I arrived late and dressed nicer than I ever had on these occasions. What were the glances I got when I stepped in? Priceless. Allison almost dropped her drink. Jay's face changed from red to white so quickly that I thought he'd pass out. But here's the best part, I didn't have to do anything. Chloe approached first, obviously tipsy. You've got some nerve showing up here, she mumbled, loud enough for adjacent groups to hear. After everything you put Allison through. I just smiled. Everything I put her through? That's interesting. Tell me more. That was when Gemma walked in. Remember her? My coworker? She'd been quietly gathering her own evidence, screenshots of Allison talking about her escapades in business chat groups, recordings of her discussing how to spin the narrative with Jay. Actually, Gemma said, I think we'd all like to hear the real story. The following hour was like watching dominoes fall. Mrs. J arrived precisely on time, tablet in hand. The projector mistakenly began presenting a slideshow of embarrassing messages and photographs. Allison's increasingly desperate attempts to preserve control of her narrative. Jacob, however, put on the real show. Good old bros come before hoes, except when the hoe can help my career. Jacob. He'd been photographing everything with his phone, intending to present it to Jay later to prove his loyalty or something. Instead, he captured Allison's entire tantrum. "You think you're so clever," she was screaming at me. "You and that bitter old woman, trying to ruin everything I've built. Jay loves me. We're going to have a life together." Mrs. J chose to share the cherry on top. Divorce paperwork. Already filed. It turned out that Jay had promised Allison the same future that he had promised the other employees. Same script, but different actress. What is the best part? Throughout this, I rarely spoke. I just watched years of manipulation and falsehoods unravel in real time. Juliana, who had been quiet throughout the evening, eventually spoke up. "I helped her," she said, addressing the now quiet chamber. "I helped her destroy that other guy's reputation. I can't do it again." By midnight, the party had effectively ended. Allison stormed out, mascara running down her face. Jay was confined in his office with HR. What about those friends who were so willing to trust her stories? They couldn't look me in the eyes as I left. Mrs. J grabbed my arm. "Thank you," she said, "for being the one who didn't run." I drove home to my motel room, feeling surprisingly calm. Pete was still awake, watching late-night television in the office. He took one look at my face and smiled. "Good night? You could say that?" This morning, my phone blew up again, this time in a different tone. Apologies, explanations. People claim they never truly trusted Allison's stories. I even received a note from Mark, the person who left town. Apparently, he has been following everything via mutual ties. Sometimes, karma doesn't require our assistance, it only requires an audience. Final update. This is it, the final chapter of this drama, and believe me, it has been an incredible ride. You may want to get some popcorn for this one. First and foremost, the fallout from the workplace party was more severe than anyone had anticipated. Within 48 hours, Jay and Allison were asked to quit. But that was only the beginning. Remember the documents Mrs. J had collected? It turns out there was more, much more. Jay had fabricated all of his expense reports to disguise his business dinners with Allison. Every correspondence in which they planned against fellow colleagues. Each falsified performance review. She gave it all to the board of directors. The company's legal team worked extremely quickly. They were more concerned with the trend of workplace harassment and financial malfeasance than with the affairs themselves. Both Jay and Allison are currently facing civil litigation. But this is where things become interesting. Remember Mark, the guy who skipped town? He came back. And he brought receipts. Literally and figuratively. It turns out he documented everything before he left, including the smear campaign Allison and Jay launched against him. He didn't know what to do with it all, until now. Mrs. J introduced him to her lawyer. 3 days later, he brought his own complaint. Then something lovely occurred. Other former employees began coming forward, each with their own story and evidence. What began as a single scandal suddenly became an avalanche. Allison attempted to get ahead of it. She uploaded an emotional video in which she claimed to be the true victim, having been duped by Jay and is now being persecuted. That's when Juliana developed a spine. She shared images of their private chats, in which Allison boasted about her escapades and plotted to harm people's reputations. The ones in which she insulted her victims. Allison visited my motel last week. Pete, the owner, called me at work. "That girl you told me about? She's making a scene in the parking lot." I took my time driving home. I found her sitting on the hood of my car, mascara streaked and clutching a manila envelope. "I have dirt on everyone," she stated, attempting to sound scary despite her wavering voice. "If you don't help me stop this, I'll release it all." I just chuckled. "Go ahead. Burn every bridge you have left. See how that works out." She flung the envelope at me. Inside were images, screenshots, and private messages, which she had accumulated over years of influencing others. Her insurance policy. I photographed every single page while she watched. Then I handed it back to her. "Release whatever you want. But first, look at where your previous schemes got you. What about folks like Allison? They cannot stand when their weapons are used against them." She ripped up the envelope right there in the parking lot, shouting about how we'd all regret it. Was that a tantrum? Someone recorded it. Within a few hours, it had spread over social media. The ultimate blow occurred yesterday. Mrs. J's divorce was final, and, guess what? She received everything? The house? The autos. Most of their assets. Jay's golden parachute from his company? Gone to pay legal fees. What's his reputation? Destroyed? What are his future professional prospects? Let's just say, Google is no longer his friend. How about Allison? According to what I've heard, she's returning to live with her parents in another state. Her social media has gone dark. Those that sided with her? They are dealing with their own fallout. It turns out that backing the wrong horse has consequences. Jacob attempted to apologize yesterday. I sent him a long note on how he could have been a better friend. I simply responded with a screenshot of his previous messages supporting Allison. He stopped me. Coward. Chloe is also conducting damage control. She is concerned that the screenshots Allison saved may have an impact on her own career. I almost feel bad. Almost. Me? I just signed a lease for a new apartment. I got a promotion at work. It's funny how removing poisonous people improves things. And yes, I'm seeing someone new. Taking it slowly. Doing things correctly. Plotting and scheming are not the best ways to exact revenge. It's living well while allowing people to harm themselves, but I will not lie. It's been really pleasant to watch everything burn. This will be my final update. Thank you for joining along for the ride, Reddit. Remember, karma doesn't need your help. Sometimes you just have to step aside and let folks show their true colors. Now to the next story, Story 2. Am I the asshole for moving out knowing my fiancé can't afford it alone while his mother who refuses to work disrespects me in my own home? Me, F29, and my ex-fiancé, M27, have been living together for about 1.5 years. Fiancé got his undergraduate degree, worked for a couple years and then decided to get an MBA, which is how he ended up in our city. We moved in together after he finished his MBA program. Fiancé is from the Midwest and his mom has always wanted him to move back. When he told her he was staying here, she was heartbroken. I went to college and got my degree in a STEM field. After I graduated, I got a job with my current company and moved to the city where we currently live. It's a big international company with multiple locations in the US and internationally. I love my job, I like the company I work for, and the pay is pretty good. All in all, a pretty good deal. During COVID, my office shut down and we all went WFH. After COVID, they decided not to reopen this office, so I've been 100% WFH since early 2020. I currently make considerably more than him, mainly because I've been working for 7 years and I'm in tech. I had been living by myself in a 1-bedroom apartment and just had my office set up in the living room since it was just me. When we moved in together, we decided to get a 2-bedroom apartment so I could use the extra room as an office. Because of this, I was paying 2/3 of the rent and he paid 1/3. We split everything else 50-50. So the problem started this past May. Fiancé's mom told him she wanted to move to our city to be closer to him. She asked if she could stay with us while she looked for a job and got settled. She's a teacher, so figured she'd be able to get a teaching job pretty quickly. Because of that, I didn't really mind her staying with us, as I figured it would just be for a couple months over the summer. Since I thought it would only be for a couple months, I moved my office into a corner of our bedroom and my fiancé bought a bed to put in the second bedroom. The problem is she never applied for any teaching positions and has been living with us for 6 months now. She and I have really been struggling with each other since she moved in. I can't make her understand that I work full-time. She constantly interrupts while I'm working, which is bad enough, but she even interrupts when I'm on team calls. She always asks me to take her places because she doesn't like to drive in our city. She has pretty outdated views of gender roles and is constantly giving me a hard time for not doing more around the house and making fiancé help with chores, do his own laundry, etc. The constant criticism and insults are just really wearing me down. And I hate having my office shoved in a corner of the bedroom. Back in September, I told my fiancé that since it looks like his mom is going to stay a while, we should split the rent 3 ways. He told me she can't afford that since she has to conserve money until she gets a job. I told him I wasn't happy paying extra for a bedroom I can't use, so finally he said we could do a 50-50 split. I could afford to pay the extra, but I hate the idea of funding her lifestyle. Every time I complain about her or the situation, he says he agrees but doesn't know what to do because he can't kick out his mom. And he won't talk to her about the way she treats me or how she behaves. When I ask what the long-term plan is, he just says he doesn't know. I've thought about giving him an ultimatum to tell her she has to leave, but I think he'd just end up resenting me for essentially putting him mom on the street. So one of my girlfriends is losing her roommate at the end of February. Our lease renews June 1st. I'm very strongly considering moving out of our current apartment and moving in with her. I can afford to pay part of the rent on our current apartment and also half the rent at my friend's apartment. It's not ideal, but I'm not a big spender, so it's doable. The issue is, if he and his mom aren't able to pay for 1/3 the rent each, there's no way they could cover the whole thing on their own. But I can't live like this anymore, so I'm pretty sure this is what I'll do, but I wanted to see if people thought I'd be the AH for leaving them like this. Comments. Comment 1. His mom is the biggest A because she specifically planned this. It isn't that she's had bad luck, she didn't even apply. Add in that she didn't respect your workplace and insults you. She's basically trying to be the matriarch of the house, while being a complete mooch. The biggest problem is your fiancé. This is just a glimpse of your future with a mama's boy. He's made it clear that he's okay with her walking all over you, and she's not leaving. You're going to end up as a third wheel in your own marriage. Comment 2. Je suis d'accord. His mom is taking advantage, and your fiancé isn't setting boundaries. It's a big concern for the future. You deserve better. NTA. Comment 3. Exactly this. OP, you're not leaving them, you're escaping a situation that was never fair to you in the first place. His mom didn't just end up staying, she chose not to apply for jobs, and your fiancé chose to let her. Meanwhile, you've been paying the majority of the rent, lost your office, and now you're stuck in your own home with someone who disrespects you daily. If he wanted to build a life with you, he would have had a plan for this months ago. Instead, you're the only one being asked to sacrifice. Time to choose yourself because they already have. Comment 4. And be prepared for them to be upset because they are losing their money bags. They were using you and had absolutely no respect for you, or neither one of them. If you don't leave, you will be the AH. Comment 5. I'm a teacher. An old, retired teacher. I could substitute teach every day this week if I wanted to do so. I still get requests to app interview for both public school and private school jobs. MIL could work if she wanted to work. I'm in my late 60s and drive all over and in Mexico and Europe on vacation. She is needlessly helpless. Comment 6. Good news, you discovered your fiancé is a mama's boy before you got legally entangled. The price is 3 months of paying double rent. Sucks, but much cheaper than a divorce, alimony, child support and years of therapy because of dealing with that kind of miel. Mommy wanted to prove her darling boy would pick her and take care of her. So she moved in and proved it. He won't stand up to her. Sadly, unless he gets some serious therapy and figures out how to unmesh, he's never going to. So tell him flat out, Mommy wins. She gets her whittle boy back. You will find a grown man. You'll pay your portion of the rent for the next few months, but you're letting the landlord know you will not be renewing and do not use your income for renewal for him and Mommy. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. You did what you could, but unless he wants to grow up, you're going to spend decades hearing how you don't cook right, clean right, raise your kids, spend money, vacation wrong, and have bad values. She, of course, knows better. Don't do that to yourself. And maybe, just maybe, this will make him realize he's got to get off Mommy's titty if he ever wants a life of his own. Update, 5 days later. I posted here last week about the situation I'm in living with my soon-to-be ex-fiancé and his mom. I started off trying to reply to everyone's comments and keep up, but honestly I just got completely overwhelmed with all the comments. First off, I want to thank everyone for their feedback and comments, even the ones that were kind of harsh. Actually, probably especially the ones that were kind of harsh. I really needed some tough love to make me realize that I was letting my STBX and his mom take advantage of me. The more comments I read, the more pissed off I got. Honestly, I think I'm more pissed at myself for allowing this to happen and not advocating for myself more. This past weekend I got my STBX alone so we could talk, which was actually harder than it should have been. BC, his mom always tries to tag along when we do anything. Going through all the comments everyone left and the PMs people sent really helped me decide how to approach this. And also, brought up a lot of good questions I should have thought of myself. Back to the discussion with the ex, I wanted to give him one more chance to pick us over his mom, not because I thought he would, but I just wanted to be able to tell myself I give him the opportunity. I explained again about how unhappy I am with the situation, how it's affecting my work because of her constant interruptions and just being unhappy and uncomfortable that I'm forced to work out of a corner in our bedroom. And I reminded him that until a few months ago I was paying the majority of the rent, and being that I make so much more than him, it's really my salary that keeps us all afloat. And I also brought up, again, the way she treats me and talks to me. And he replied the same way he has been. He agrees it's not right how she acts and that it's really uncomfortable for us all. WTF, I don't care if she's uncomfortable. Previously I would have dropped it there. But this time I told him how angry and disappointed I was that he let me pay for 2/3 of the rent when she first moved, and how unfair it was that I'm still paying for half when there are 3 people living there and she is the only one with her own bedroom. It was the same story, she has to conserve money since she doesn't have any income currently. Which brought up the question of where all her stuff went when she moved. What money does she use for incidentals? So evidently, when she got divorced. She asked for the divorce after my ex went off to college. It doesn't sound like her husband, ex's dad, wanted the divorce. His dad bought her out of the equity in their house. Ex didn't have any idea how much that was or how much is left. But until she moved here she was working full-time as a teacher and living in a small apartment, so she should not have had to tap into the divorce settlement money very much. Other than that, ex didn't have much insight into her finances other than what she told him, that she has to conserve money. I told him straight up that I'm moving out before the end of the month. And from now on I'm only paying 25%. As some of the commenters pointed out, she has a whole bedroom while I have to share with a man-child. So she should have to pay twice as much. And after I move out I'm not paying for anything else. No utilities, no food, nothing other than rent. I have a pretty idea what his finances are like, and if he has to pay 75% of the rent all by himself it's going to take a huge chunk of his net income. And after he pays utilities and buys groceries there won't be anything left for incidentals. Rent was due on the 1st but it's not late until after the 5th, so he has 2 days to come up with the dollars. If he doesn't come up with it and I end up covering, then I'll reduce the amount I pay in future months. The only reason I'm going to keep paying any of the rent is even after I move out, I'm still on the hook. I talked to the leasing office and they explained that since X and I signed a single rental agreement together, e.g., one contract we both signed as opposed to 2 contracts we signed individually, we are both responsible for the rent. They don't care who actually pays as long as it gets paid. The only alternative would be if he agrees to sign a new lease by himself, or together with his mom. But in all likelihood he wouldn't be able to pass the credit check on his own, so I'm kinda stuck. I don't think he'll do anything stupid though because he's going to need to find some place to live after this and a collection on his credit report wouldn't be good. I also told him that I'm going to find some place to work during the day until I move so she can't bother me. My friend I'm moving in with said I could work there during the day since she and her current roommate have in-person 9 to 5s. I took her up on that for now. After living with his mom, I'm not about to overstay my welcome so I'm going to find some other options that I can rotate through. Someone suggested checking out the public library, or if it comes to it I'll get a membership at one of those WeWork kind of places. Just in case, I brought my important papers, files, valuables and my friend is storing them for me until I move in. He really didn't take it well. The surprising thing to me is that he was surprised by everything. He seemed really shocked that I wasn't prioritizing his mom. I really got the feeling that he sincerely believed I wanted to take care of her as much as him and he kept saying stuff like, "What about my mom? What am I going to tell her? That's how she is but we still need to help her," etc. He asked about our relationship and the engagement. I told him after I moved out I needed some space from him. In a few months when we've both had some time space to process what happened, if we both agree we can talk about the relationship. But he'd have to prove that he's going to have my back going forward and will set boundaries with his mom. I told him that just to avoid more drama, but I don't see a future in which we are together. I told him he needs to tell his mom because she's not my responsibility or problem and she'll know something when I start moving my stuff out. He hasn't told her what's going on yet, but this weekend I'm going to start moving things so he doesn't have much time. My friend's current roommate starts a new job in another state on the 3rd, so in reality I can probably move in 2 to 3 weeks, just depending on when she actually leaves. I don't expect him to do anything bad, other than sulk and complain, but if he does something stupid, or doesn't pay his part of the rent, the ace up my sleeve is I'll tell the leasing office his mom moved in, which is prohibited in the lease. Honestly, getting evicted would solve a lot of my problems right now, so it's a pretty valid threat I think. Now that I've mentally and emotionally separated myself from him and his mom, I'm looking forward to her reaction when he tells her what's going on. If it gets too ugly, I'll find a cheap Airbnb or hotel or something. I've had some friends, including the one I'm moving in with, offer to let me couch surf for a few weeks, but I just can't do that to someone else. So, that's it, I'm leaving and I really don't care how that affects them. Comments. Comment 1. You're at the end of a long and painful process, but I'm sure that you will be better for it. Good luck. Comment 2. Dude should really just marry his mom. Comment 3. Notify your landlord in writing that you are moving out and to take you off the lease after June 1st. You wouldn't want to do nothing and accidentally trigger an automatic renewal. Oop. Already did that. I did it before I went to talk to the front office and confirmed that they received it while I was down there. Now to the next story, story 3. Am I the asshole for skipping my brother's wedding after his fiance's reckless prank on my husband led to false accusations and family conflict? Thinking about not attending my brother's wedding because his fiance's prank on my husband. I am a 25 female, My husband is 30 male, my brother 32 male and his fiancée, 31 female recently came to visit us in our city. My partner and I are new homeowners and they were staying with us for the first time. My brother's fiancée loves Halloween. She is also a Disney adult and has a childlike side to her which comes out sometimes. She's just super involved, absorbed, when it comes to her interests. Anyway, I'm just sharing this for context because my perspective is that she often gets carried away and I genuinely feel what I am going to describe was the result of one of those moments where she just took it too far and suffered some negative consequences. She is, however, taking it as a very personal attack. So we disagreed and the disagreement resulted in my husband cutting their visit short. AKA they were asked to leave. 31F has made comments more than a few times now since meeting him, that my husband gives off a dark vibe. She is always comparing him to characters from various books she reads. It's not necessarily criticism, she always explains that they are compliments. Well, I'm not sure anymore. Her reasons for these comparisons are based on his looks, the general vibe he gives off and his tattoo. He only has one, but it's on his hand. During this recent visit, she mentioned she would love to see someone like him get scared because she can't imagine him getting startled, or letting out a scream. Scaring him became her goal during her stay with us. None of us knew about it, not even my brother. The incident causing all the trouble is that she tried to jump scare my husband in the garage. It was dark and she ambushed him in the garage while wearing a full outfit and mask when he was returning from a run. Well, he didn't let out the scream she wanted. He instinctively reacted by shoving her against the wall. She hit her head and was quite shaken up. Luckily he realized very quickly by the sound she made that it likely wasn't an intruder. He switched the lights on and pulled her mask off. He told me he was very confused at the moment. Why would she attack him? My husband helped her inside, apologized, made her tea and then called me. I was out with my brother. When we got home, I asked 31F if she was okay and I said her prank was stupid to do because she could have gotten seriously hurt. I don't know if it was what I said that bothered her or if she was just waiting for her partner to come home, but she launched into crying about how my husband used an excessive amount of force knowing it was most likely her just doing a harmless prank. In a nutshell, my husband asked her straightforwardly, "Are you implying I intentionally assaulted you?" She hesitated but chose to say yes, and my husband responded to that with "Get out of my house." I tried to smooth it but my husband was adamant if that's what she genuinely believes, she's not welcome to stay. 31F chose to stick to her accusation. I decided to side with my husband. My brother is angry with me, he thinks I should have tried to do damage control and let them stay by convincing my husband to lean more into apologizing and placating his fiancée who was just recovering from the situation. He thinks this whole thing would have blown over if I'd helped my husband fold. I find this unfair. My brother was counting on me to handle all this yet he didn't speak up during the conversation or try to talk sense into his fiancée. My husband remained calm the entire time, but he obviously felt insulted by her remarks and I think that's valid. Why should I have taken my brother's fiancée's side over my own husband? Especially when I feel like she was wrong for doing all that, then turning around and accusing my husband of wanting to hurt her. My brother says I was short-sighted and should think of their upcoming wedding, but I think he is the one who needs to get his fiancée to apologize to my husband. Editing to add the text below, in an attempt to answer some things that are getting lost in comments. I would like to clarify, when I meant I tried to smooth the situation, I was not taking 31F's side or doubting my husband in any way. I simply tried to get everyone to consider tabling this until emotions had cooled down. And by those emotions, I mean the hysterics of my brother's fiancée. My husband was calm throughout, although there was an obvious finality about his decision. He made his statement and disengaged. As mentioned, my brother looked to me hoping I'd persuade my husband, but I didn't, so they had to leave. The costume. I mentioned in a comment that I didn't get an opportunity to ask that night if she bought an outfit specifically for this prank or if it was my brother's Halloween costume. They go to adult Halloween parties, and we're attending one this weekend 2 hours from where we live. It was part of my brother's costume. A mask, like a golden masquerade one but more coverage. It reminded me of the gold jeweled animal masks from Squid Game, or something you'd wear to a Rothschild party in the 70s. And she had on a long robe, a cloak with a hood. People asked me to update. I will do that. Please look at my comments too in case I already answered a question you might have, but I think these two were the ones I saw pop up the most. I'm sorry I can't keep up with all the comments, I really tried. I will be showing this thread to my brother. Comments. Comment 1. If she hadn't hidden in the dark garage in a hooded costume, none of this would have happened. There's no way he would have known in the moment that it was her, and I believe anyone would have a similar reaction. Frankly, she's lucky she was not hurt more than she was. There's a direct cause effect here, yet she's not accepting responsibility. I think her behavior falls into the play stupid games category. Your husband doesn't have anything to apologize for and it's offensive for them to try to obfuscate her responsibility. NTA comment 2. Exactly this. It's one thing to come out of a closet into a well-lighted room, and completely another to jump someone in a dark garage. She's lucky he didn't break her nose or her jaw. Comment 3. I live in Oklahoma. She's lucky she didn't get shot. Comment 4. Texas here. Getting shot is a real possibility. That's beyond stupid on her part. I can guarantee you that I will not be attacked again. Not funny. Comment 5. NTA. Your future SIL is deranged. She attacked someone coming into his own home. He reacted accordingly. How would he know it was her? She FAFO. Your brother should have told her it's her own fault. Be prepared for more dramatics once they are married and go LC now. Nothing will ever be her fault. Edited to add, call your family now and tell them what happened before they spin it and blame your husband for reacting appropriately. Comment 6. Their relationship dynamics are concerning. You might want to distance yourself from her drama. Update, 19 days later. I got a lot of messages requesting an update. I have never made one before, so I hope I am going about this correctly. To recap my previous post, my 25F brother's fiancé, 31F, decided to jump scare my husband, 30M, in our dark garage because she wanted to get a reaction from him, and possibly hear him scream. As ridiculous as it sounds, this is the only motive we have been able to get out of her. My husband responded to her jump scare by instinctively shoving her against the wall. Luckily for her, he heard her voice and recognized that it wasn't an intruder. He apologized to her at that moment, helped her inside, and calmed her down. He told me he was gentle and understanding, but once she was seated and started to calm down, he made it very clear to her that her actions were reckless and could have led to serious harm. It's my personal opinion that she didn't like the change in his demeanor and being told off because it meant she was no longer the victim, but the transgressor. In a shitty attempt to get herself out of the hot seat, she decided to accuse my husband of using excessive force, implying that he intentionally assaulted her, even though she was the one who initiated the whole situation. This led to an emotional reaction from my brother, and heightened the tension between him and my husband. My husband was zero tolerance about the theatrics, FSIL in hysterics, and my brother getting riled up about it. He kicked them both out. You can read the details of the first post here. Update, I tried to talk to my brother multiple times after the incident, but each attempt ended in silence because I refused to give in to his demands. He wanted my husband and me to apologize to his fiancée, starting with me downplaying the whole situation so she wouldn't feel bad about her prank. I hesitated to send him the Reddit post I'd made. Initially, I thought it might work against us to make things worse. But his total inability to reason with me or see the situation for what it was became beyond frustrating. Since I couldn't physically deliver a cold hard slap to his face for asking me to be complacent and allowing my husband to be falsely accused of assault, I figured the next best thing would be for him to read all your comments. Following the advice I got here, I tried to get ahead of the situation by informing my parents. My dad, a reasonable and practical man, immediately sided with my husband. His comments were similar to what a lot of people here had said, focusing on how dangerous and reckless the prank was and the ramifications of being falsely accused of assault. My mom, who unfortunately has always favored my brother, suggested we at least hear her out, referring to my brother's fiancée. As vivid as I was about her reaction, I wasn't surprised by it. My dad did try to shut down her skepticism, but she remained on my brother's side for a few days, until I showed them footage from my brother's Tesla, which he had tried to delete. The Sentry thing, sorry if I'm using the terminology incorrectly, I'm not a Tesla owner, recorded part of the interaction in the garage, not the jump scare itself, but the aftermath, which IMO was more crucial. My husband's account was confirmed. He used a measured amount of force to immobilize her and was prepared to escalate if necessary, which is beyond generous for someone to do in a situation like that, and definitely not owed. Many of you speculated that she might have a fixation or even a crush on my husband, and I'm starting to reconsider some past interactions with that in mind. I also misunderstood what dark books she expressed she enjoyed, and compared my fiancé to. I learned from comments here that they are actually a subtype of the romance genre. I didn't know she was comparing him to characters in romance novels because one of the characters I recall her comparing my husband to was from a book about dragons. I genuinely wish I still remembered the names of various characters she's mentioned over the months so I could satisfy my own curiosity, but my brain glossed over the names during conversations. We have a group chat for the wedding, which includes my brother, my parents, my brother's fiancé, and her parents. In that chat, I addressed the incident but didn't share the Tesla footage, only mentioned that it exists. Her parents didn't respond in the chat, though I know they saw the message. Later, her mom called mine. Apparently, they had no idea about the prank. It's hard to say whether they believe me or if they've taken their daughter's side after speaking with her. My brother's fiancée, and my brother, have both extended apologies to my husband, and have requested our presence at their upcoming wedding. My parents, trying to keep the peace, have encouraged us to go, saying it's the honorable thing to do. So, for the sake of family formality, we've decided to attend. However, my husband has made it clear that we'll be there out of obligation. We will be keeping a distance from them going forward. We haven't explicitly stated it, but there will be no future invitations to our home, not even for the holiday dinner we had planned before all this happened. My husband is going to minimize all future interaction with my brother's fiancée. I don't think we'll ever trust her again. I'll try to spend some one-on-one time with my brother to gauge where we stand. Our relationship feels strained, and this incident has made me realize that I lost him to her long before this happened, something I hadn't fully recognized until now. Thanks to everyone for sharing your opinions. A reporter from a news outlet reached out to me, and I remember requesting that if anyone uses my story, I would like them to pass on the following sentiment. I hope that if you share my story, you can help highlight the dangers of ambush-style pranks. These types of pranks create a threatening environment and put everyone involved at risk of serious harm or injury. They are stupid and dangerous. No one should have to feel threatened or be put in a position where their safety is compromised for the sake of a prank. If that's the setup, then it's not a prank. Actions like these will always have consequences, some of which may be irreparable, and no prank is worth the risk of someone getting hurt. Editing to add a little footnote, I understand people get curious and invested, but please consider this my final update. If necessary, I will update again in the future, but it will be unlikely, and I assure you it won't be anytime soon. I got a lot of DMs requesting updates on the previous post, so I thought I'd place this disclaimer here. And another edit to fix the formatting. I wrote this post in my notes app first, which was a dodo move apparently. Sorry, I suck at this. Comments. Comment 1. Still NTA, and your SIL is still lucky that all she got was a shove against the wall. Doing dumb shit tends to get people killed more often than not. Comment 2. Please make sure to keep a copy of that video and if possible a written statement from your future SIL. She can always backtrack and try to ruin your husband's life with a false accusation. Oop. We have a copy. Comment 3. That's good, I would still be very careful with your whole family. Your husband was attacked and it seems they are all very happy to keep it hush-hush. I know you are trying your best and I applaud you for it, but please never forget they are willing to appease that psycho no matter the consequences to your husband. Final update, 2 months later. I still get the odd message or notification on this account, which is surprising to me. I always feel bad because I can't feed the interest with a truly juicy update. TLDR, my brother and his partner got married, she is pregnant and we are no contact. This is the last one from me, guys. I did read, or try to read, some of the books I got recommended that would show me what my husband is being compared to. I mostly did this for entertainment purposes. I think some fans of these books will get mad, but I'll just be honest, these books are not for me. I got up to book 3 in Asotar, although my skimming increased with each book. I made it through a little bit of the 4th one and that's when my brain just couldn't take any more. I think my husband was supposed to be Rhysand. After reading 3 + 1 half-ish books, I don't quite see it. I found both Rhysand and Fair increasingly annoying as the books went on. I just DNF'd. They're not my people. If I had to pick, Asriel seemed a little more like my husband, maybe, based on just loose vibes that I got. I also read 4th Wing, just the one book, and I won't be reading the rest of the series. I think my husband was supposed to be Xaden. He's actually more of a Liam personality-wise. These were the main 2 books. Anyway, the actual update, my brother and his fiancée got married. She was pregnant. My mom had already suspected apparently, but the pregnancy was announced during the wedding. The pregnancy has made my parents kind of soften. My mom is distracted about becoming a grandma. It hasn't changed how I feel. I still think it's a mistake that he's marrying her, and I'm worried about him. But I also don't have any intense feelings. It's his life. My husband didn't have to attend the wedding, we all said he could skip it, but he wanted to accompany me. Nothing dramatic happened at the wedding. We did keep it a bit of a distance, so maybe we missed any drama if there was some. I did learn something disturbing from someone who has spent more time with my brother's wife. She had apparently made some disgusting comments about my husband in the past. She had said he looks like a Legend comics character. It feels nasty to direct quote her, so I will just paraphrase. She basically implied he is so essayable and or would be doing the essay or something. I don't know if any of this has to do with the context of these types of comics. This was all apparently said in a WhatsApp chat, but no proof of the conversation because the person who told me said she got a new phone and didn't back up her WhatsApp. I don't have any reason to believe she would make this up though. I didn't confront my brother's wife about this comment because it was said a long time ago and it just doesn't seem worth bringing up. We have just continued our no contact. Like I said, pretty boring update, but it's truly my final one now that the wedding is over. Comments. Comment 1. At this point I would go NC, the parents are useless, the husband's reputation is being tainted and there's nothing op and the family can do except just accept that's how it is. Loser if you'd ask me. There will be potentially more hideous incidents in future if the husband keeps attending op's family gathering where the sill would be there, and I'm afraid it will affect op's marriage sooner or later if no NC at this point. YDK about you guys, but I prefer to prevent than repair. There are some things in life you cannot repair. Comment 2. Wow, that's crazy. Definitely keep your distance from SL and maybe put up some more cameras. I pity your brother because he's in for a rough ride with the person he chose to marry and procreate with, but then again he doubles down and backs her outrageous claims. Hopefully you can move on without any more issues with the crazy SL. I would be wary of family dinners or holidays without recording them to protect yourselves. Now, on to the next story. Story 4. My wife hid that she's asexual. I asked for a divorce, she refused, and even tried to open the relationship by offering her best friend to me. My wife, 29F, and I, 34M, have been married for 4 years, and up until a year and a half ago, things were fantastic. Our marriage began to deteriorate after there was a significant drop in sex between us, not intimacy, just the actual sex part of the relationship. We would still cuddle and have deep intimate moments talking and just being around each other, but she kept rejecting my attempts at taking things further past kissing. Now we have had no problem communicating, so I made sure to address it early, and we talked and made adjustments. We both made sure to stay in shape, we tried being more adventurous, we went to couples therapy, joint counseling, and even tested both of our hormone levels. Everything was normal. Each solution would work for a little while and then we'd be back to having sex maybe once a month. I asked her several times if she was no longer attracted to me, to which she denied every time. I asked her if I was falling short in the relationship in any other way, to which she said no. Well, about a month ago, she got back from her therapy session and told me that she believes that she's asexual and that's the reason for her libido being non-existent as of late. I was definitely confused because we had such great sex for a while in the beginning of our relationship, but her telling me that she's now asexual was heartbreaking because everything else is great. Obviously I'm not going to force her to have sex, so we had a long conversation about our relationship and I came to the conclusion that we should get a divorce. I say I because she immediately rejected the idea and said we would figure something out and wouldn't talk to me about it anymore. I didn't know what to say, so I dropped it. Well, 3 weeks go by, without sex, and I decided that I have to do this for my own mental well-being, so I filed for divorce and had her served with the papers. Last week when I got home from work, she was going about the day like nothing was wrong. I asked her if she signed the papers and she flat out said, "We are not getting a divorce," and changed the subject and acted like things were normal. Obviously I thought this was crazy, so I stopped her and said I couldn't be in a marriage devoid of sex, and I mentioned that I was being incredibly fair with our divorce. She can keep the house that we bought and paid for with cash. She paid 1/3, I paid 2/3. I'd take all of the debt, which isn't much, we'd split our savings and investments in half, and she can keep 2 of our 3 paid off cars. I only wanted to keep my sports car. Thankfully we don't have kids. I love her and want her to be comfortable, and I have no problem starting over since I make a good income. But she won't budge or talk about the divorce. This brings us to 2 days ago. I get home and go to our bedroom and find my wife's friend, 27F, in our bed naked. I immediately shut the door, said sorry, and went looking for my wife. I found her in the kitchen and asked what her friend was doing here, and she said that she was here for me. I put 2 and 2 together and said that I'm not having sex with other women in place of the woman I chose to marry. She was adamant on saying that I could sleep with her whenever I wanted and that her friend agreed to it. I couldn't believe things would get this far, so I went back to our bedroom and asked her friend to leave. I packed a bag and I've been staying in a hotel nearby since that night. My wife, her mother, and her sister keep calling me, but I'm just not interested in hearing what they have to say. This feels like a trick. I just want this whole thing to be over. Does anyone have advice? Is this some kind of ploy for alimony? We do have a prenup? Should I just contact my lawyer and try to force the divorce? I'm really uncomfortable with this entire situation. Edit. We talked last night, I'll update when I get home from work. Edit 2. Here's the update if anyone's interested. I'll try to keep this as concise as possible. I feel overwhelmed, so I probably won't bother with another update after this one. I don't know. My wife came to my hotel last night and we talked about everything. She told me the full truth and what's going on in her mind. A few of you commented on this in the last post, so you were right. She has always been asexual. She and her whole family has known this since she was 16. Apparently this is the reason why her last long-term relationship of 3 years ended. He broke up with her after the sex between them diminished to being non-existent after the first year. She told me that sex is easier for her in the beginning when emotions are running high, but she still needs to force herself to have it. I knew they broke up due to unresolvable differences, but I didn't ask for details, nor did she tell me. After a lot of apologies and crying, she told me that I was the first person she was able to tolerate sex with for so long and that she did enjoy it a handful of times. But after a while she still felt like she was being raped. I broke down after hearing this and started kicking myself for not catching on to any of this. She said she tried her best to please me as much as she could. She still doesn't want a divorce and she doesn't want the house, cars, or the savings. She just wants me and is ready to do whatever it takes to keep me. She even said that she would sign a postnup stating this. As for her friend, she was there during her last breakup and helped to support her through it. My wife went to her after I brought up divorce and talked things out. Her friend suggested that she open the relationship for me, but she said she didn't want me sleeping with strange women, so her friend volunteered herself to be the one that sleeps with me. My wife thought this was a great idea, which led to the fiasco at our house. I won't comment on her appearance because it doesn't matter, and I don't blame the friend. My lawyer got back to me. You were all right. I don't need her permission, but I will have to wait if I want to push it through. I asked her why she lied to me this entire time, and she said she was tired of being rejected after revealing she was asexual, so she convinced herself that she would be able to force herself to have sex during the relationship. The hormone testing, the sessions in couples therapy, and all of our solutions was just her buying time to find another way around sex or give herself enough time to build up the strength to start regularly having sex with me again. Our conversation ended with us holding each other in bed crying for a couple of hours. No, we didn't have sex. She pleaded with me to hold off on the divorce to look for a solution together and left my hotel room. I'm now sitting alone typing this fucking post. I guess I found out that we don't share everything with each other. Thank you to everyone who has messaged me directly. I'm still trying to get to all of them. I don't know what I'm going to do. Comments. Comment 1. You did right, bro. Let your attorney handle this. Do not have sex with anyone until your attorney says you're in the clear. Oop. That's my only course of action right now. I'm going to look for an apartment tomorrow. Comment 2. Also, why are you offering her so much? Split the marital property equitably and move on. If you even have the slightest inclination that she's trying to set you up, then don't just roll over and let her have everything, because that won't be enough for her and her attorney. Comment 3. This, OP. I don't see any reason that the judge wouldn't just divide the assets and liabilities 50-50. I understand wanting to offer her more to get her to sign, but if she's not willing to do that and you have to go to court about it, you're gonna want to tighten up so you have some leverage. OP. She has been wonderful to me otherwise. I don't feel like she should be punished for finding out who she is. I want her to be comfortable because she doesn't make nearly as much as I do. I can bounce back with no issue. She'll still have to work to provide for herself unless she marries another high earner or becomes one herself. A fresh start doesn't scare me at all. Comment 4. That's nice of you, but she's being manipulative and sketchy as hell with this latest stunt. You being so nice about it is fair enough. Comment 5. I don't know if she's being maliciously manipulative. Most likely she's terrified of him leaving her and is in denial or doing everything possible to get him to stay, or both. He says everything is perfect except for the lack of sex, so she sees this as they can stay together if she provides him someone to have sex with that isn't her. It's not a black and white situation. And while I agree the wife's actions are not appropriate, I think she's acting out of fear and love. Again, that doesn't make it okay, just that we don't have enough information to say that she 100% is trying to trap him in anything. Update. 2 weeks later. I don't think I can link my previous post, so just go to my profile I guess if you care to read the op. I've tried to read every comment, message and take to heart what most of you had to say. Also please stop messaging me. I can't respond to everyone, it's too much. I'll make this as short as possible. After my last update, my wife asked me to meet with her about a week later to discuss things with her. I've been staying at an extended stay since that night with her friend. We met at our house and talked for a few hours. She started off with a ton of apologies for how she acted, her lying about her sexuality, and not taking my sexual needs more seriously. Before I could say anything, she presented a signed postnup agreement she had drafted with a lawyer stating that she doesn't want anything, the house, the cars, savings, everything. I felt like the biggest asshole for thinking that she was tricking me for more money. I asked her if she was serious and she told me to take the post-nup with me and sign it when I'm ready. I still haven't signed it, it's in my backpack. I told her that I still think divorce is our best course of action and that we both deserve to find someone who matches our needs. She still refused and borderline begged me to reconsider. She started crying and so did I. Seeing her like this was devastating. I told her that finding other women to sleep with me wasn't going to work. What if I develop feelings for them? What if I get one of them pregnant? Do we expect her to get an abortion? She said we'll figure it out as we go along, and to please give her more time to work on other solutions. She set up appointments for sex and hormone therapy, and it's seeing a sex guru. I said that it sounds like we're going through the same things again, but she was adamant and pleaded with me to wait. There were more apologies on both sides and we kissed for a while before ending the conversation, then I went back to my hotel that night. A few days later I tried texting her but she didn't respond, so I called her dad. I'm avoiding her mother and sister since they are saying the same things as my wife. Her dad told me that she moved back home and has been holed up in her room since our talk. She called out of work. He told me that she's barely eating, bathing, or talking to him or her mom. He asked me what I was going to do but I didn't have an answer for him. He just said he understands and said he would be here to talk anytime I wanted to. So I went back to our house and a good portion of her stuff was gone. The whole place feels empty. I've been sleeping in one of the spare rooms. I'm planning on flying to my mother's house in a couple weeks to spend time with my family to decompress from this entire situation. I'm still on the divorce side of the fence but I guess there's no rush. Thank you to everyone for your insight and concern. Seriously, I know we're all strangers but most of you have been a huge help to my mental health. Seriously, thank you. Also my cousin uses Reddit and reached out after he found my last post and asked me to shout him out if I made an update. Love you Virgil, thank you for being there for me. I think I'll just make a quick edit to this post once we reach a resolution for anyone that cares. Comments. Comment 1. It's a tough situation, but if having an intimate physical relationship with your wife is important, I think you know what needs to be done. Sucks for everyone involved. Godspeed. Comment 2. Sex in a relationship is like the toilet in your house, it's not the first thing you mention when talking about it, but if it's not working then it's immediately noticed. Update, 10 months later? Hey everyone, in hindsight I regret making these posts because I think I received too many pieces of advice. I keep thinking I should have just handled it internally with just family. I don't regret my decisions, I just wish I gave myself more time to think. Anyway, here's the update. I'll keep it short. The divorce was finalized months ago, our house was sold along with one of the cars, and my ex-wife is still living with her parents. I had a little more than 2/3 of the proceeds wired to her account but the last time I talked to her dad she hadn't touched a dime. I was informed that she checked into a mental health clinic but I don't know how long she was there or what her current state is. I changed my number but her dad has emailed me a few times to check on me throughout this last year, which breaks my heart because he's a great man. Him playing both sides of the fence like this really made everything go a lot smoother. Other than not warning me, which I honestly don't think it was his place to, he's been a huge help. I moved back to my home state to be closer to my family. I may leave to go to another state again. I don't know, I'm not sure yet. I feel numb from this whole thing. Not much of a drinker so I've been smoking a ton of pot and working out to occupy my mind. To everyone who didn't get a response from me in my messages, I'm sorry but there were just too many. I responded to as many as I could mentally handle. I think that's it. I can't imagine that there would be any additional questions, but I'll answer whatever I can. Comments. Comment 1. Wow. Hope you both find some type of lasting happiness. You move on. Your ex is hopefully finding some peace. Comment 2. I'm not so sympathetic to his ex-wife. She lied to him for years, misled him, and drew this out and took years of his life away trying to live her version of happiness at his expense. It's unfortunate she's taking it so hard, but what she did to him was cruel and selfish. Comment 3. Do you love her at all? I feel like men are all thinking with dicks like is there no love if there's no sex? Like how is being asexual worth a surprise divorce with no discussion, and how you are supported by people on Reddit is just a joke. Love does not equal to sex and if you're willing to dump the woman you made vows to based on sex then you don't understand love at all. You won't find love ever and anything you find going forward is not going to be more than lust. OOP. We tried to fix things for over a year. I understand where you're coming from, but I guess my question to you is, what can you live with and without in a relationship? Money, attraction, respect, intimacy, non-sexual, security? Which one of these are you comfortable with losing in your relationships? Now to the next story 5. Am I the asshole for cutting off my parents after my mom refused to care for me postpartum, even though she did it for my siblings? Throwaway account, and my English writing is really bad. Please bear with me. So I, 28 female, am 30 weeks pregnant with my first child and am about to move to another state, and mom has this thing where she takes care of my siblings when they give birth until they recover. She has done it for my older sister and my brother's wife, so I thought that she would do the same thing with me too, but a week ago she told me that she couldn't because it is too far away. We got into a fight about the whole thing, and I told her to get out of my house, and now we are not talking. Before you judge me and say that my mom isn't obligated to take care of me, I will tell you that it isn't about mom taking care of me. It was never about that. I am that one child in the family who nobody really cares about. My parents always claim that they love and treat us all equally, but man, is it obvious that they love me a little bit less than the others. I always thought that maybe I am adopted and that's why they don't care about me that much. Well, I am wrong because I am 100% theirs. It is always about how my other siblings are doing or how mom and dad are suffering, but it is never about me. It was never about me from the beginning. I rarely celebrate even if it is supposed to be my day. My birthdays? They rarely celebrated because mom and dad forgot, or they just threw everything in the house and called it a birthday. High school graduation party? Nope, my parents have already wasted a lot of money for my big brother's college graduation party, so they can't do that, but they will make sure to make it up to me. Do you think that ever happened? I will give you a minute or two. If you guessed no, then congrats, you guessed right. Yay! They shared the wedding expenses of my siblings' wedding, but since my husband came from a good family, they don't have to share wedding expenses. Not my words. I have always been the therapist who listens to my mom and dad's rough day, or the one who needs to help mom because my older siblings have a lot of school work to do, or because my younger siblings are too young to do that kind of work. They always tell me that I am a good daughter, but I am never the one who they brag about to their friends. I did everything in my power to make them proud, but my achievements will always be below my siblings. I have tried to talk to them about how I feel multiple times before, but the only thing I get is a hard scolding about how I was getting spoiled. I hated my life until I got out of that house, but I never had the courage to let go of them, thinking that they would change. Well, my mom just proved me wrong. Mind you that my older sister lives a whole ass ocean away from Yo, but mom decided that taking a 10+ hour flight to another continent twice was not hard at all. But all of a sudden, and taking a 4-hour ride to my home was too much. Especially when I am in a place where I don't know anyone except my husband. I am so fucking tired of them putting everyone else above me. So, I will make things right between us until I leave because I don't want to end things on a bad note, and when I get to my new house, I will just cut all contact between us. I don't think that I have the energy to do all of this crap anymore, and besides, I have my lovely husband with me, so I will be alright and build myself a new family where I am truly appreciated and loved for who I am. Note, I am the third out of 5 children. My younger siblings are twins. Comments. Comment 1, NTA. Tell her you can't keep in touch, it is too far away. Comment 2, NTA. Yes, I agree with you. Make nice with your mom while you're visiting this time and minimize contact when you get back to your own home. It could be that your mother wants you to beg and plead. Oh mommy, pretty please, come help me, I need you. But my reaction is F that game playing. Put your energy on your husband and build a new support network where y'all live now. Comment 3. NTA. Put them on a strict information diet. Stay off socials, inform your husband and his family that you want nothing posted on social media. Do not let them know when the baby is born or when you go into labor. Do not answer the phone, respond to email, texts, etc. Put them on a ban list at the hospital if you have to. Gather more evidence of them singling you out, then when asked by others, you give them the full story. Maybe shame will cure them. Update, 3 months later. Hello. First, I would like to thank everyone for their kind advice. I was honestly shocked when I saw all of these messages. I really appreciate it. A lot has happened since my last post. I tried to call my parents but they were blocked and I couldn't reach them, but I was determined to get the closure that the younger version of me wanted. So I called my older brother and I asked him if we could meet up and talk about the situation. He told me that he won't meet up with me after what I've done to our mother, and he berated me saying that I was an ungrateful person and that mom is in a lot of stress and pain because of me. I told him that it wasn't fair for him to just assume that I was the villain and that he couldn't even understand my point of view because they didn't treat him like they treated me my whole life. He knew that they treated me like their personal chef, maid and therapist for years, but they couldn't even give me the love and attention that I wanted for once in my whole damn life. He basically screamed at me through the phone that I was a piece of trash for saying that, and that mom and dad treated us all equally, but I was just a damn narcissist who can't think about anyone but myself. I tried to talk, but my emotions got the better of him and I started breaking down on the phone and he hung up on me. I even started asking myself if I was really the narcissist that my family seemed to think of me. But my husband came to the rescue and helped me through all of this, but the doubt that maybe I was in the wrong still lingered in my head. I guess my brother told my parents that I called him because dad called about 2 days after that and asked me to meet up at their house. I was about to say no, but I couldn't because his voice was filled with remorse, so I thought that maybe, just maybe, we could get past the whole thing and I could drop the thought of cutting contact even if my mom doesn't want to help out. After like 3 days of talking to my dad, me and my husband went to their house to talk. I thought that it was going to be me, my husband and my parents talking, but they invited my brother and his wife. As soon as we sat, my dad started talking about how disappointed he was with me and that things shouldn't have led to this. I told him that he was right, things shouldn't have escalated to where they are now, but I assumed that since mom helped take care of my sister and my brother's wife, she would do the same, but she just favorited everyone else above me and it was frustrating. I told them about how I felt for the past years and I told them everything that I said to you guys, but all of them acted like they didn't care, which honestly hurt like hell. I knew at that moment that I didn't mean anything to them, so why was I fighting to be a part of a family that didn't want me? My husband was going to speak, but I told him not to. Everyone gave their opinions about it, basically blaming me, and then dad asked me if I wanted to say anything to mom. I told her that I was sorry because I didn't want any type of bad blood between us before I close this chapter and move on with my life, but she didn't say anything back, and dad said that we needed some time cooling off and setting some boundaries, and I guess that was it between us. In the next 2 weeks we were packing and leaving the state. I didn't tell anyone about where my new house will be. Only once I got there and settled down did I write a long message about everything they did and how I felt, and at the end of the message I told them that I was completely cutting contact with my parents and older brother. I changed my phone number and blocked all of my family from my social media. And you know what? My life has never been this peaceful in a long time. I am happy about everything and my baby will arrive any day now. It is honestly stressful, but I love it so much. We hired a helper around the house because why not? Now my day consists of sleep, take a walk, eat some more, have back and hip pains, and repeat, which honestly isn't that bad. Thank you for reading comments. Comment 1. Sounds like you finally choose peace over drama. Wishing you all the happiness with your little one. Comment 2. Yup, sometimes family is just a title. You don't owe them anything if they don't treat you with love and respect. Comment 3. Blood doesn't mean loyalty. You gave them every chance, and they showed you exactly who they are. Now you get to build a family that actually deserves you. Wishing you nothing but peace and joy with your little one. Now to the next story. 6. I cut off my freeloading sister, but she stole my identity. My parents enabled her, yet I walked away, choosing self-respect over their toxicity. Do you know how some individuals joke about becoming the family bank? For me, it wasn't a joke. It was my life. For 5 years, I'd been my sister Melissa's unofficial treasurer, paying her rent, electricity, groceries, and even the occasional splurge for her daughter Ellie. All while working a blue-collar job where overtime wasn't a bonus, but a necessity. Melissa was not always like this. She once had a husband and a sense of stability. But when her rage became too much for him to manage, he walked out, leaving her with a stack of bills and a kid. That was when the family baton of responsibility was passed to me. Our parents, reveling in their retired golden years, made it obvious that they had no intention of intervening. "You're young and capable, John," Mom said to me when I brought it up. "You can handle it." So, I handled it. I tightened my belt, worked additional shifts, and put my own aspirations on hold. All to ensure Melissa and Ellie did not go without. I told myself it was the correct thing to do. Who else was going to help them? But then, a year ago, Melissa landed a nice job. Nothing flashy, but it included a paycheck, benefits, and the opportunity to finally get back on her feet. I decided I'd help out for a little longer until she adjusted. But as the months passed, I observed something troubling. Melissa wasn't battling anymore. At family dinners, she'd nonchalantly mention her most recent shopping trip or the new gizmo she'd purchased for Ellie. At first, I stayed quiet, thinking to myself that she deserved to have some fun after going through so much. But last week, she pushed me too hard. We were at Mom and Dad's house for dinner. Melissa, Ellie, our parents, and Uncle Rob. The supper was the usual commotion, with Ellie refusing to eat her veggies while Mom and Dad spoke about their most recent cruise. Then Melissa dropped a bomb. "I'm thinking about buying this amazing purse," she added, displaying a snap from her phone. "It's only $500, but it's designer." I paused mid-bite to comprehend her remarks. You're thinking about spending $500 on a purse while I'm still paying your rent? I inquired, my tone calm but forceful. How did she respond? She laughed. Oh, don't be so cheap, John. Something inside of me cracked. 5 years of sacrifice, forgoing vacations, nights out, and things I desired, all for her. So I was cheap? I set down my fork, my appetite gone. Cheap? I repeated, my tone chilly. Let's talk about cheap, Melissa. Like how I've been covering your rent while you buy purses. Or how I've sacrificed everything while you pretend you're struggling. You know what? I'm done. The room became silent. Mom and Dad were now fascinated by their mashed potatoes, while Melissa looked at me in bewilderment. What do you mean, done? She inquired, her tone skeptical. I mean no more rent, groceries, or handouts, I added, rising up. You're on your own. Uncle Rob sat back in his chair and blew a low whistle. Way to go, John, he said, clapping my back. You don't owe anyone anything. Melissa spluttered, attempting to formulate an answer, but I didn't wait. I grabbed my jacket and went for the door, pausing only to say, and if you think this is temporary anger, you're wrong. It's time for you to grow up, Melissa. I departed with my heart racing in my chest. As I drove home, relief and rage struggled for control. 5 years as the family bank, and this is how I was treated. Little did I know, the aftermath from that dinner was only the beginning, and what happened next would put me to the test more than I ever imagined. Melissa's stillness was frightening. Days passed, then a week, and I heard nothing from her. No angry texts, no guilt-tripping voicemails, nothing. It seemed too quiet, like the calm before a storm. I kept telling myself I had done the right thing, but the nagging feeling that something was brewing kept me on edge. That something appeared late one night in the shape of a knock on my door. When I opened it, I wasn't expecting to see my parents standing there, their faces a mix of irritation and self-righteous outrage. We need to talk about Melissa, Mom stated without hesitation, entering inside as if invited. Dad followed and closed the door behind him. I crossed my arms and leaned on the kitchen counter. Do we? Because I think I've said everything I need to. She's struggling, John, Dad said, his voice heavy with disappointment. Ellie doesn't deserve to suffer because of your stubbornness. I couldn't help but chuckle, and it wasn't out of amusement. Let me get this straight. You two, who have spent the last 5 years on cruises and at wine tastings, want to lecture me about family responsibility? When exactly did you decide to care? That's not fair, Mom exclaimed, her face flaming. We're retired. You're young and capable. And she's your daughter, I replied, my wrath boiling out. Funny how she's suddenly my responsibility now that you don't feel like dealing with it. The conversation continued in a familiar pattern of shame and blame. Mom's voice rose as she lectured me on family loyalty. Dad groaned deeply, shaking his head as if I were a disappointment. You're being cold, John. Mom eventually said, her tone accusing. This isn't like you. Maybe not, I said, approaching the door and holding it open. But it's how I'm going to be from now on. Thanks for stopping by. They departed muttering, but I felt strangely relieved. For once, I had stood my ground. The relief lasted exactly 2 days. Melissa contacted me out of the blue. I considered not responding, but curiosity got the best of me. What do you want? I inquired, ignoring pleasantries. Her tone was very light. Just wanted to let you know, I'm moving out of the apartment next month. Why? I asked, frowning. Can't afford it without me? Oh, I can afford it, she responded, her tone haughty. I just don't want to. I'm moving back in with Mom and Dad. That hit me like a blow in the stomach. What? They offered, she stated nonchalantly, as if it were no great thing. They said they didn't want Ellie to suffer because of your little tantrum, so I'm putting my stuff in storage and moving into the guest room. Should be cozy. I could not find the words. The thought of Melissa reclining at my parents' house, rent-free and responsibility-free, while they made excuses for her was nearly too much to handle. Oh, and one more thing, she said, her voice full of phony tenderness. You might want to check your credit report, just a heads up. My stomach sank. What the hell does that mean? She laughed. You'll find out. Bye, Johnny. I hung up and instantly entered my credit card account. What I witnessed made my blood run cold. There it was. A new credit card account in my name, with a staggering balance. Thousands of dollars were charged to stores that I had never visited, all of which had opened within the last 6 months. Melissa had taken more than just my money. She had also stolen my identity. My hands shook as I stared at the computer, rage, bewilderment, and betrayal whirling through my chest. Helping her was one thing. Being fooled for a fool was something quite else. It wasn't just about shutting her off anymore. This was wartime. 2 weeks later, I was still dealing with the consequences of discovering Melissa's credit card fraud, hours on the phone with credit card companies and a lawyer. I submitted a police report not out of choice, but because my lawyer advised me to do so. I knew it would worsen things, but Melissa had given me no choice. Then came the shocker. I was at work, trying to concentrate on a project, when my phone vibrated with a text message from Uncle Rob. "Did you know your parents took out a loan? Thought you should hear it from me." A chill ran down my spine. A loan? For what? I called Uncle Rob immediately. He did not mince words. "They're paying off the rest of Melissa's debt," he stated plainly. "She went crying to them after you cut her off, and they decided to bail her out. They took a loan against the house to do it." My jaw clenched. "You've got to be kidding me." "I wish I was," Rob responded. "They didn't want you to find out, but I figured you deserved to know." I hung up, my blood blazing. They had gone over my back, enabling Melissa once more and jeopardizing their own financial stability in the process. Worse, they expected me to remain quiet and pick up the pieces when everything fell apart. That evening, I drove directly to my parents' place. When I walked in, they were sitting in the living room with Melissa, laughing as if everything was perfect. As soon as they saw me, their mood changed. "John," Mom said cautiously. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here because I just found out about the loan," I explained, my voice quivering with barely restrained rage. "Care to explain?" Mom's face turned pale, but Dad stood up, his look hard. "We did what we had to do," he explained. "Ellie doesn't deserve to suffer because of your stubbornness." "And what about you?" I questioned, looking at Melissa. "What's your excuse this time? Stealing my identity wasn't enough?" Melissa crossed her arms, her voice defiant. "I did what I had to do, John. You cut me off. What was I supposed to do?" "You were supposed to grow up," I snapped. "But instead, you ran back here and dragged them down with you." I turned to my parents. "And you let her. You're willing to jeopardize your own future just to enable her lies and manipulation. Do you even hear yourselves?" "We're protecting our family," Mom stated forcefully. "No, you're enabling her," I responded. "And I'm done being a part of it. Don't you dare walk out on this family," Dad shouted as I turned for the door. My heart pounded in my chest as I paused and returned my gaze to all of them. "You already walked out on me the moment you decided my sacrifices didn't matter. I've been your scapegoat long enough. From now on, you can clean up your own messes." Melissa smirked. "You'll be back, John. You always come back." I met her look with a hard voice. "Not this time." I walked out and slammed the door behind me. My phone was filled with angry texts from my parents and Melissa for the rest of the night. I disregarded them all. For the first time in years, I wasn't burdened by their expectations. I wasn't their banker, fixer, or fool anymore. I was free. This wasn't just disobedience, it was emancipation, and I had no intention of turning back. The fallout was immediate. Within hours of leaving my parents' place, the family group chat exploded. Messages from my dad and Melissa covered the screen, each more dramatic than the previous. "Mom. You are pulling our family apart, John." "Dad. You were raised to be better than this." "Melissa. Ellie is heartbroken. You are a selfish coward." I put down my phone, tightened my jaw, and went for a walk. The night was crisp and peaceful, in stark contrast to the pandemonium raging in my mind. I felt raw, angry, sad, and relieved. For years, I'd carried the weight of my family's expectations, and now that I'd let go, I wasn't sure what to do with myself. The next day, I got an unexpected call from Uncle Rob. "Heard about what happened," he answered sternly. "Good for you, kid. Someone needed to stand up to them." I exhaled a breath that I hadn't realized I was holding. "Thanks, Rob. I don't feel like the hero right now." "You're not the hero," he stated bluntly. "You're just the only one with any sense." His words provided me with a sense of validation. Still, the days that followed were difficult. My parents had stopped phoning, but the silence was not comfortable. I knew they were furious, and I knew it wasn't over. Melissa wasn't as quiet. She resorted to social media, writing vague yet pointed messages. "It's sad when the people who are supposed to love you the most are the first to abandon you." And my personal favorite, "Family is supposed to be forever. Guess not for everyone." The genuine breaking point came a week later, when my folks invited me to supper. Despite my better judgment, I went. Perhaps I still hoped for a chance at reconciliation. When I arrived, the situation was tight. Melissa was already present, sitting at the table with a smug grin. Ellie was nowhere to be found. "We need to talk," Dad said, his voice heavy. "About how I'm the bad guy?" I inquired, sitting down. "About how you've handled this," Mom asked, her voice harsh. "You didn't have to humiliate Melissa or threaten her with the police." "She committed fraud," I stated, my voice rising. "What did you expect me to do? Clap and say, 'Great job, sis'?" "You could have handled it privately," Dad retorted. "You didn't have to escalate things." "Privately?" I scoffed. "You mean quietly, so no one would see how you've enabled her for years?" Melissa finally spoke up, her voice filled with wrath. "You're just bitter because I didn't need you anymore." I rose up, my chair grinding loudly on the floor. "You've never needed me, Melissa. You've just used me. And now you've dragged them down with you." "John," Mom replied, her voice softening. "Please, for Ellie's sake." "This isn't about Ellie," I interjected. "This is about you refusing to let her face the consequences of her actions. And I'm done being a part of it." I fled without looking back. That night, I sat on my couch, rehearsing the confrontation in my mind. The rage, the hurt, and the treachery. Everything was there. But there was something else. A sense of freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't shouldering their burdens. In the weeks that followed, I immersed myself in my life. I resumed going to the gym, reconnected with friends, and focused on work. Uncle Rob had been correct. This was not about being a hero. Uncle Rob and I had supper one night, and he told me how proud he was of me. "You're finally living for yourself," he told me. About damn time. It was not easy. The guilt persisted, especially when Ellie called one evening and asked why I hadn't come around anymore. I promised her that I loved her and would be there for her no matter what, but my determination remained firm. I'd learned a terrible lesson: family does not entail losing your happiness, limits, or dignity. Sometimes, love entails stepping away. And as the days passed into weeks, I discovered something I hadn't felt in years: tranquility. In the months that followed, my life changed in ways I never anticipated. Initially, the quiet from my parents and Melissa was deafening. For years, I was their safety net, go-to problem solution, and banker. Now it was just me. The lack of their continuous demands felt unusual, but it also allowed for something I hadn't experienced in a long time: serenity. I began to fill my days with activities that brought me delight. I finally joined a recreational basketball league after putting it off for years due to job and family obligations. I finally took a weekend trip to the mountains, a dream I had put off so many times that it began to feel like a fantasy. Standing by the shore of a peaceful lake, with no one texting me about bills, rent, or guilt-tripping me into solving their problems, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. Work became a source of pride once again. Without the shadow of family trouble hanging over me, I poured my energies into a new project at work and received a promotion within 3 months. My coworkers also observed the change. "You seem lighter," one of them commented over a team meal. "Like you're finally breathing." They were correct. For the first time in years, I could breathe. Uncle Rob, my dependable sounding board, remained a constant presence in my life. He lifted a glass and smiled as he dined on meat. "Here's to you, kid, for finally learning how to say no." I chuckled, but his words stayed with me. Saying no had been the most difficult thing I'd ever done, but it was also the most important. Melissa, unsurprisingly, continued to play the victim. According to what I heard, she was still living at my parents' house, relying on them for assistance, and avoiding responsibility. Mom and Dad became increasingly frustrated, but their pride prevented them from acknowledging they had made a mistake. The true surprise came from Ellie. One afternoon, she called me from her mother's phone. "Uncle John," she spoke softly. "Can I come visit you? Mom says you're mad at us, but I miss you." Hearing her voice made my heart break a little. However, it also gave me hope. "Of course, you are welcome to visit," I replied kindly. "You're always welcome here." She came over the following weekend, and we spent the day baking cookies, watching movies, and discussing school. She hugged me goodbye and whispered, "Thanks for being my favorite uncle." That moment reminded me why I had battled so hard to establish boundaries. It wasn't just about protecting myself. I wanted to show Ellie what self-respect looked like. The lesson I learned was simple, yet deep. Standing up for oneself is not selfish. It is important. Family does not imply being a doormat. It denotes respect, support, and mutual caring. And if such things are missing, it is acceptable to walk away. The distance from my family was difficult, but it provided me the opportunity to create a life I could be proud of. I wasn't simply surviving anymore. I was thriving. For the first time in years, I felt like I was right where I was supposed to be. One evening, as I stood on my balcony, watching the sunset, I understood something important. I hadn't lost a family. I had regained myself. And that was a trade I would gladly make again. Now to the next story, 7. I bought a house, but my family expected me to house my sister's family for free. I refused, cut them off, and I'm moving to London. I, 35F, work as an investment analyst and am pretty successful in my job. Growing up with an older sister, Victoria, 38 degrees Fahrenheit, I realized early on that if I wanted something, I had to work for it myself. From the start, our parents' treatment of us was noticeably different. When Victoria turned 16, she received a nice new Volkswagen Beetle with a large red bow on top. When it was my turn, I got Dad's ancient Honda, which had 150,000 miles and a tendency to break down. Victoria has always been the ideal child in our parents' eyes. She was the beautiful one, the social butterfly, the one who couldn't do anything wrong. She married her husband, Nathan, 39 million, right after graduation, and they quickly began having children. They currently have 3. Charlotte, 8F, Lucas, 5M, and Andrew, 2M. They live in a rental flat, which Victoria frequently complains about. Meanwhile, I have been more fortunate in my own way. My best friend's parents own numerous properties and have been renting me a wonderful one-bedroom apartment at half of the market rate for the last 5 years. They trust me because I've never given them any reason not to. While Victoria had everything handed to her, I learned to be cautious with money. Since I began working, I've been saving diligently by living within my means, cooking at home rather than eating out, and taking public transportation whenever possible. My coworkers frequently mock me for being overly frugal, but I had a plan. College provided another striking evidence of inequity. Victoria attended her ideal school, with our parents covering all expenses, including tuition, lodging and board, and a hefty monthly allowance. Meanwhile, throughout my final year of high school, I applied for every scholarship I could find, staying up late to maintain my perfect GPA, knowing that it was my last chance at higher study. With remote work becoming more widespread at my company, I just need to come into the office for key meetings. A tranquil country cottage seemed ideal. Last week, I finally opened my savings account and examined the data. After years of diligent planning and saving, I had enough to make a down payment on a small home. I was in the middle of looking through real estate listings when my mother called, with her usual impeccable timing. "Don't forget, we're expecting you for dinner on Saturday," she added, her voice carrying a subtle order disguised as a reminder. "Victoria and Nathan are coming with the kids, and please try to be on time for once." I arrived at my parents' suburban home at precisely 5:05 p.m. that Saturday. Their driveway was already full with Victoria's minivan, so I had to park on the street. Inside, there was the usual chaos. Kids running around, my mother fussing over everyone as if it were a state supper rather than our typical family meeting. My father had already retired into his usual recliner with his newspaper, where he would remain until supper was served. The traditional dinner complaints circulated. Nathan complains about his demanding supervisor and difficult project deadlines. Victoria laments their tight flat and the children's constant demands. Dad expressed concerns about the economy and gas prices. Mom frequently adds to the commotion by commenting on everyone's eating habits and portion amounts. During these evenings, I mastered the art of mental escape. I took advantage of the hubbub by checking my phone under the table and scrolling through a lovely small home I had discovered. 2 bedrooms, a large kitchen, and a stunning garden. The pricing was within my budget. The listing images depicted a beautiful wraparound porch, ideal for a set of rocking chairs. The prospect of sitting there with my morning coffee made me happy. "What's so interesting on that phone? You barely touched your food." Mom's piercing voice broke through the background commotion. Her hawk-like eyes never skipped a beat, despite the commotion. I could have made something up about work, but perhaps the warmth of the fantasy still lingering in my head compelled me to be honest. "Actually, I'm looking at houses. I'm thinking about buying one soon." The silence that followed was terrible. You could hear the ice cubes settling in the water cups. Even the children realized something had changed. Charlotte paused in the middle of a conversation about her school performance. Lucas halted, fork halfway to his mouth. Even tiny Andrew stopped slamming his spoon against his high chair. Victoria's head shot up so quickly that I worried she could suffer whiplash. Nathan's incessant rants about his boss ended in mid-sentence. Mom's hand paused in the middle of reaching for the salt shaker. Dad's newspaper descended gently, like a curtain, showing his astonished expression. "Buy a house?" Mom asked, as if she hadn't heard me right. "You?" "Well, yes," I admitted, immediately regretting my candor. The way they all looked at me made me feel like I had announced plans to invade Mars. I'm just looking at options right now, nothing definite. What kind of house? Victoria said, her voice retaining the strangely pointed tone she used when she felt frightened. It was the same tone she used when I received a higher SAT score than she did, just before convincing our parents that I had cheated. I haven't really decided yet, I answered ambiguously, attempting to change the conversation. But I could sense their minds working, unspoken thoughts nearly palpable in the air. My parents exchanged profound looks, the type they'd honed over decades of marriage. Victoria kept looking at Nathan, who had suddenly become quite interested in his mashed potatoes. The typical supper bustle soon resumed, but something had changed. The talk felt forced, as if players had forgotten their lines and were desperately trying to finish the show. Even the children appeared to pick up on the stress, and their usual loud demeanor subsided. A week later, my phone began to vibrate with Mom's calls, during an important Zoom conference. After her third effort, I called back during my lunch break, expecting an emergency. Finally, Mom said, her voice practically trembling from joy. I found the perfect house for you. Martha from church informed her of a listing in her neighborhood. It's absolutely ideal. I set down my half-eaten lunch, immediately felt a headache forming. Mom, I haven't even asked for help finding a house. But she was now in full stride and unable to halt. It has 5 bedrooms. No, 6. The master bedroom is huge, and there are these adorable children's rooms with built-in closets. I blinked. Oh, and the backyard. There's already a playground installed, can you believe it? And the location is just perfect. Walking distance to St. Mary's Elementary School and the public library. I stroked my temples, trying to remain cool. Mom, I appreciate you thinking of me, but that's not what I'm looking for at all. I want a small country house, something cozy just for me. I don't need multiple children's rooms or a playground. Don't be ridiculous, she yelled, her delight quickly turning into frustration. You can't just think about yourself, you need to plan ahead. This house is perfect. Martha says the owners are motivated to sell quickly? After she hung up, Victoria began sending out an endless stream of postings for large family houses. Each subsequent message delivered another 4 to 6 bedroom house with numerous baths, large yards, and close proximity to schools and parks. By the 20th message, I had stopped checking. It was evident that they weren't listening to what I really wanted. Instead, I contacted Amanda Cha, a realtor with glowing recommendations. During our first encounter, I was struck by how well she listened. I want something small and cozy, I explained. A country house, not too far from the city, with good internet for remote work. Maybe a small garden where I could grow herbs and vegetables. When I told her about my pricing range, her eyes brightened up. I think I might have exactly what you're looking for. It just came on the market yesterday. The house she showed me was ideal, a lovely 2-bedroom cottage located 40 minutes from the city. White siding, dark green shutters. A wraparound porch with room for rocking chairs. Sunlight poured in via huge windows onto an open-plan living room. The kitchen was not large, but it had been redone with butcher block worktops and modern appliances. A wood-burning fireplace dominated the living room wall, and I could envision nice winter days spent reading beside it. Upstairs, there were 2 modest bedrooms and a bathroom with a clawfoot tub, which I fell in love with right away. But the sunroom sealed the deal. There are windows on 3 sides that view a well-kept garden with raised beds and a small greenhouse. I could immediately envision myself spending weekends there, surrounded by greenery and natural light. The owner offered a quick closing discount, and I accepted without hesitation. The following few weeks were a blur of paperwork and preparation. I put down a larger down payment than was required, keeping the monthly payments manageable, using the money I had carefully saved all these years. While my family undoubtedly believed I was being cheap, I was actually building my future. After everything was finalized, I planned to announce the news at the next family dinner. Mom had just started discussing another house. Barbara next door is selling. She'll give us, you, a good price. Actually, I interrupted, unable to suppress my joy, despite their past attempts to sway my decision. I've already bought a house. The hush was absolute. Even Charlotte, who is normally unstoppable, paused in mid-motion. I took a big breath and began detailing my new house, my voice full of enthusiasm despite the mounting tension around the table. It's this beautiful cottage, about 40 minutes outside the city. 2 bedrooms, the most amazing sunroom, and there's even a small greenhouse in the backyard. The previous owner had these gorgeous raised garden beds. My father's fist hit the table with such power that the water glasses jumped. Are you out of your mind? He exclaimed. I had never seen him that angry before. Andrew burst into tears as he heard the startling boom. "How dare you buy a house without consulting us first?" My mother's cheeks had turned an alarming red. "After all those perfect family homes we found? Why would I need to consult you about buying my own house with my own money?" I inquired, feeling as if I had wandered into some strange parallel dimension. "Because we had it all planned out," Mom practically screamed. "Barbara's house would have been perfect, right here in the neighborhood, plenty of room for everyone." "Room for everyone?" I asked slowly, growing confused. "It's just going to be me living there." The hush that ensued was deafening. Mom and Dad exchanged glances as Victoria sat there with an unusually serene demeanor. Nathan was suddenly quite interested in his plate. "Actually," Mom explained in a tone that made my blood run cold, "the plan was for Victoria, Nathan, and the kids to live there with you." I waited for the punchline. It didn't arrive. Victoria nodded, as if everything was totally normal. "We're so cramped in that apartment. Your house would give us all the space we need, and since we wouldn't have to pay rent or utilities, we could finally start saving money." I gazed about at their dead serious expressions. Dad's severe condemnation, Mom's righteous rage, Victoria's entitled expectation, Nathan's awkward avoidance. Years of memories flowed back. Every time, Victoria got what she wanted while I worked twice as hard for half the pay. Every time, my successes were ignored while her slightest achievements were praised. "You all just assumed I would buy a house for Victoria's family to live in?" "Well, of course," Mom threw out her hands, as if I was being intentionally cryptic. "That's what family does." "This isn't helping? This is expecting me to house 5 people without even asking me." "You're being selfish," Victoria shouted, her cool demeanor breaking. "The kids have to share rooms? Andrew's crib is in our bedroom. It's not fair to them." "You need to cancel this ridiculous purchase immediately," Mom commanded, her voice harsh with the control she had exercised over me for 35 years. "Barbara's house is perfect, right in the neighborhood." "No." I stood up, scraping my chair against the floor. The word came out stronger than I expected, bearing the weight of decades of pent-up rage. Chaos erupted. Mom jumped up and waved her arms. Dad's voice roared. The children started crying. "But we'll be so cramped," Victoria moaned, like if I hadn't said anything. "Charlotte has ballet. Lucas has soccer. You're not going to be cramped anywhere because you're not living in my house," I said calmly. "None of you are. Ever. Is that clear enough for you?" They stared at me as if I had a second head. The entitled shock on their faces was nearly amusing. "How can you be so cruel to your own sister?" Mom asked, clutching her pearls and her voice shaking with wrath. I grabbed my handbag and walked towards the door, their shouts rising behind me in a cacophony of demands and accusations. I couldn't hear another word. I got in my car and drove home in a haze, their entitled expectations still echoing in my ears. Update 1. The aggressive knocking on my flat door began as I was packing the kitchen. The coffee mug I was wrapped in newspaper slid from my grasp but landed safely on a mound of packing paper. "Open this door right now," my father's voice rang through the wood. "We know you're in there." I froze, bubble wrap still in my fingers. More thumping ensued. "Go away," I yelled back. "I'm not discussing this anymore. Don't you dare talk to us like that." Dad's fist caused the door to rattle in its frame. "We raised you better than this?" My hands trembled as I took up the phone. "If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police, I mean it." I pulled up the keypad and purposefully pushed digits, ensuring that they could hear the beeping. "I'm dialing right now." Dad's curse was broken by Mom's sudden intake of air. "We're leaving." Mom's voice had become as icy as ice. "But this isn't over. You're making a terrible mistake." I slid down against the wall, my heart thumping, after hearing their footsteps disappear down the corridor. An hour later, Victoria sent the first message, which included a photo of Charlotte and Lucas squished together on their shared bunk bed. "Look how little space they have," the caption stated. "Charlotte can't even have a desk for homework." When I didn't answer, another photo appeared. Andrew's crib squeezed into the corner of Victoria and Nathan's room. "He wakes up every time we come to bed. This isn't fair to him." As I continued to ignore her, Victoria's communications became increasingly hostile. They began arriving at all hours. 2 a.m., 4 a.m., and 6 a.m. "You always were Dad's least favorite. Mom cries herself to sleep because of you. I hope you're happy all alone in that big house while your nieces and nephews suffer." I blocked her phone number. Then her Facebook. Then her Instagram. But she kept finding new ways to contact me, setting up new accounts, using Nathan's phone, and even inventing false email addresses. The phone calls began to come from different directions. First, there was Aunt Marie. "Sweetie, I just heard what's happening with your sister. Surely, you can find it in your heart to help family." Uncle Bob was next. "Kid, you need to think about what really matters here. Family comes first. Susan is my mother's dearest friend. Your mother is devastated. How could you do this to your own family? Even my former high school teacher, Mrs. Peterson, whom my mother still saw at church. I always thought you were such a kind student. I'm so disappointed to hear about this situation with your sister." They all sent the same message. I was selfish, heartless, cruel. I should give up my home, my goals, and my independence to help Victoria. None of them seemed to wonder why Victoria's living predicament was my concern. After 2 weeks of incessant pestering, I'd had it. I went to my cell carrier and changed my phone number, giving it solely to my employer and a few trustworthy pals who had not chosen sides in this fiasco. Moving day was blissfully quiet. I chose a moving firm I'd never used before, ensuring that my relatives couldn't track my address using common local services. The movers worked quickly and professionally, and by dusk, I was standing in my new living room, surrounded by boxes and possibilities. That first night at my cottage, I sat on my veranda with a cup of tea, listening to the crickets and watching the stars appear. There's no traffic noise, no sirens. There's no family turmoil. Just peace. I felt something inside me suddenly relax. A tightness I hadn't realized I'd been lugging around for years. I occasionally checked their social media updates. Victoria posts passive-aggressive status messages about family betrayal and selfish siblings. Mom's barely veiled posts about ungrateful children and family obligations. Relatives and family friends made comments, everyone taking sides without understanding the whole tale. But here's the thing. None of it concerns me anymore. Their comments can't reach me in my new refuge. I turned the second bedroom into a home office, positioning my monitors to face the window so I can watch birds visit the feeder I erected. The previous owner's raised garden beds are currently overflowing with herbs and vegetables. My first try at gardening was surprisingly successful. For the first time in my life, I am living fully on my own terms. And it feels really liberated. Update 2. Something unexpected occurred today. Remember the large investment project I've been working on remotely from my new home? It paid out hugely. My manager summoned me to a virtual meeting to inform me that I had not only received a significant bonus, but was also being considered for a director job. My new environment's quiet and focus had enabled me to excel at work in ways I had never believed possible. Without regular family interruptions and emotional exhaustion, I found myself proposing new ideas and taking on leadership roles naturally. This triumph, however, resulted in an interesting development. Victoria's apartment complex was sold to a developer who intends to transform it into luxury condominiums. All tenants received eviction notifications with a 60-day notice to vacate. I learned from family members that Victoria and Nathan were having difficulty finding a new place that fit their budget. The timing could not have been better. My promotion comes with a large salary boost, and I chose to utilize my bonus to make down payment on a lovely holiday home in the mountains. It's essentially an investment, as property values in that neighborhood have skyrocketed. Today, I received a well-phrased email from Nathan, not Victoria, interestingly enough. He described their predicament and asked if I would like to negotiate housing arrangements again. The old me may have felt guilty. Despite everything, I could have considered helping. But I simply gave them some local apartment listings that fit their budget and wished them luck in their quest. Mom took a different approach. She showed up in my workplace building. I suppose she got the address from LinkedIn. With tears in her eyes, she described how she and her father were suffering with their retirement money and had always relied on the family sticking together to help each other in their golden years. I listened politely. Then I stated that my financial advisor had advised against combining family and financial commitments. Her face turned a familiar shade of red. But this time, in the professional setting of my company lobby, she couldn't cause a fuss. The family's social media campaign has taken a unique turn. They are now writing about wealthy people who have lost touch with their roots, as well as stories on toxic individualism in modern society. My aunt even wrote a lengthy Facebook post about how money can transform people, to which hundreds of people responded sympathetically. But they are unaware that my accomplishment has drawn the attention of headhunters. Several famous firms, including one in Europe, have expressed interest in hiring me. The idea of putting an ocean between myself and this drama is getting more enticing. Meanwhile, my new greenhouse is flourishing. I've started growing exotic orchids, which are delicate and require time and attention to detail, similar to creating a job or limits. I'm discovering that the most satisfying experiences in life require time and effort to cultivate. I joined a local gardening group, which has become a fantastic source of camaraderie. These people have no idea about my family issues. They just know me as the woman who brings homegrown herbs to meetings and asks in-depth questions about soil pH. It's refreshing to be judged entirely on who I am, rather than my willingness to give up my life for the sake of others' convenience. Yesterday, I held my first dinner party in my new house. Colleagues, gardening friends, and neighbors gathered at my dining table to share wonderful food and conversation. No one asked anything from me, except possibly the recipe for my herb-crusted salmon. The evening was filled with laughter, intelligent conversation, and mutual respect, all of the things that family gatherings should be but never are. As I watched my visitors have fun on the porch and fireflies dance in the yard beyond, I realized something important. I haven't simply purchased a house. I've built a life. A life that is totally my own, free of the burden of others' expectations and entitlements. Allow them to submit their passive-aggressive messages. Let them discuss family duty and obligation. I'm too busy thriving to worry. Update 3. The last elements of my win fell into place today. Victoria and Nathan were unable to acquire a new apartment. Their credit check found some alarming findings. They're currently temporarily residing with our parents, with all 3 kids squeezed into the guest room. Meanwhile, I received an official offer for the director post in our London office. The remuneration package is outstanding, including a lovely, company-provided flat in Kensington. When I announced my acceptance on LinkedIn, professional congrats flooded in. The contrast between my colleagues' sincere support and my family's harsh silence was startling. The most rewarding moment was when Dad called. His voice lacked the usual authority. He began by casually asking about this London foolishness, but it soon became evident why he was calling. The recent market slump has significantly reduced their retirement savings. They'd reportedly planned to sell their home and move in with Victoria's family, in the house they anticipated me to buy. We always assumed we'd all be together, he added, his voice unusually shaky. Your mother and I aren't getting any younger. I stayed professional and detached, offering a great financial advisor I know. She specializes in retirement planning for seniors. I'll email you her contact information. My family is unaware that I have already made arrangements to manage my mountain home as a premium vacation rental. The predicted income is impressive, more than enough to pay Victoria's whole monthly rent, strangely. But it is not information I intend to convey. Today, I held a farewell garden party for my local friends. The greenhouse was in full flower, with orchids providing a beautiful backdrop. As I watched my visitors have fun, someone commented on how much I've changed since moving here, how I appear more confident and at ease. Later that evening, while packing for London, I discovered an old photo album. There was a photo of teenage Victoria receiving her brand new Volkswagen, and I was standing in the background next to Dad's ancient Honda. The recollection no longer stings. Instead, it makes me realize how far I've come. I am retaining my rustic cottage. It will be my getaway when I visit the United States. The garden will be maintained by a nice retired couple from my gardening group, while the house will remain my sanctuary, free of family strife. Tomorrow I'll board a flight to London. My family does not yet know. They will find out when they see my social media posts from Hyde Park or along the Thames. Victoria will probably write about sisters who desert their families. Mom will share articles on expats who regret abandoning their loved ones. But sitting here in my sunroom one final time before my early morning journey, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant colors, I feel nothing but peace. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning the battle, but choosing to leave the battlefield entirely. Allow them to deal with their cramped living conditions and financial challenges. I'll be too busy enjoying my new life in London to read their social media updates. Sometimes the best retaliation is simply living well. Now to the next story 8. Am I the asshole for calling the police immediately when my sister's family broke into my new house with a stolen spare key? Hello, Reddit. I, 27F, feel like I've spent the majority of my life in the shadow of my older sister, Anna, 30F. She's always been the favorite, you know the one, smart, social, and capable of charming her way out of any situation. Meanwhile, I've been called the irresponsible one, which in my family simply refers to the one who does all of the work but receives no credit. Growing up, Anna always had the best of everything. Her birthdays were large garden festivities complete with bounce castles and pony rides. Mine. A pizza party in the dining room featuring a cake from the grocery store bakery. Anna got the Barbie dream house for Christmas, whereas I got a second-hand counterfeit with a missing elevator. My parents would simply remark, "You don't need all that fancy stuff," or, "Be grateful for what you have." However, Anna's gratitude was never required in the same manner. The big separation occurred when I entered college. I had worked hard in high school, juggling AP classes and extracurricular activities to maintain a high GPA. I was admitted to a local university and believed I had a great plan. I'd commute from home to economize on dorm fees. Anna had attended her dream school, and my parents had funded everything. So I figured they'd benefit me, too. Wrong. When I mentioned my plan to live at home, my mother looked at me as if I had just suggested we relocate to Mars. "If you're staying here, you'll need to contribute," she added casually. "Anna got a full ride from us because she deserved it. You need to learn responsibility." I was 18 and preparing to enter college, and they were already talking about me paying rent. Contribute turned out to be $400 per month for rent and electricity, plus my personal groceries. That may not seem like much unless you're a broke college student working part-time at a bookstore for $9 per hour. I attempted to explain, reminding them that they had covered everything for Anna, that she had never had to worry about money at school. Mom simply shrugged. "We gave Anna what she needed," she stated. "You're different. You're independent. You'll figure it out." So I did. I worked as many hours as I could at the bookshop, occasionally skipping meals to make ends meet. Every morning, I would pass past the campus coffee shop, envious of the students who could purchase lattes and pastries while I brown-bagged PB&J sandwiches and drank free coffee from the bookstore break room. I never bought a textbook at full price. Everything was used or borrowed from the library. Every month I handed over the $400 to my parents while Anna was away at her out-of-state school, living in a brand new dorm that my parents had purchased for. She contacted me once to complain about her dorm's AC not being chilly enough, and I almost lost it. I didn't have air conditioning in my automobile since I couldn't afford to fix it. My parents continued to send Anna money each month. I once overheard Mom on the phone saying, "We don't want her to struggle. College is difficult enough." I stood in the kitchen, clutching my $1 ramen noodles, wondering why none of that compassion was ever shown to me. To make matters worse, my parents were continually praising Anna for her accomplishments. She earned a 3.2 GPA in her communications department, and they threw her a lavish graduation party complete with a catered buffet and a DJ. When I graduated with a 3.9 and a computer science degree, we had a peaceful meal at home. Mom prepared lasagna and replied, "Well, we don't want to make a fuss." Looking back, I believe what stung the most was not the absence of financial assistance, but the apparent message that I didn't count as much. Anna was always portrayed as the star with potential, while I was just there. Even when I achieved it, it was overlooked. "Kate's smart. She doesn't need help," they'd say. It seemed like being capable was a curse. After college, I moved out as quickly as possible. I rented a little apartment near my first job and began living my life on my terms. It wasn't easy, but it felt great to be free of their expectations. I worked hard, lived frugally, and began saving. Meanwhile, Anna married Josh, 32 million, whom my parents adore, despite the fact that he's constantly changing jobs. They currently have 3 children, Sophia, 5F, Lucas, 4M, and baby Noah, 2M. My folks are continually bailing them out. When their automobile broke down last year, my parents handed them money to get a new one. When Anna complained about how difficult it was to keep up with 3 children, Mom and Dad offered to babysit on weekends. I wish it didn't bother me anymore, but it still does. No matter how much I do on my own, it seems like I'll always be second to Anna. That is why I no longer share many details about my life with my family. I know they wouldn't mind, not really. So, I've been keeping this quiet, but I recently decided it was time to start looking for a home. I had been renting this tiny flat for years, paying far too much for what was essentially a glorified shoebox. And I'd been saving for what seemed like forever. I ultimately came to the point where I thought, you know what? I deserve it. Now, here's the thing, I didn't inform my family. Not because it's a big secret, but because nothing with them can ever be solely about me. Everything becomes a group project. If I mentioned anything, I knew they'd start making it about Anna and her children, and how whatever I earned would help them in some way. So I decided it was easier to keep my lips shut until all was said and done. Apparently, that was overly hopeful. I'm not sure how this happened, but a woman I work with, let's call her Lisa, managed to let it slip. Lisa is one of those people who is always interested in what others are doing, and I believe she casually mentioned to someone that I was looking for a house. That person simply happened to be Anna's neighbor. From there, the news spread like wildfire. The delights of small-town Texas. A few days later, my mother contacted me. "Kate," she said, her tone excessively joyful. "Why didn't you tell us you're looking for a house?" I should have known better, but I chose to play dumb. "Oh, I'm just browsing around right now, nothing serious." Well, Anna and I have been talking, and we have some great ideas for you. I could sense dread creeping in. You're going to need something big enough for everyone, you know. At least 4 bedrooms, for the kids of course. What kids? I questioned. I don't have kids. She kept going as if this were the most regular thing in the world. You'll need space for Anna's family when they visit. And for us too. Oh, and it'd be great if it was close to Anna's place. I'm not sure why I was startled. She had already turned my potential house into the solution to their issues. I said something non-committal and hung up the phone as quickly as I could, thinking it was a one-time occurrence. But, oh dear, it wasn't. My mom and Anna began flooding me with house listings after that. I'm not exaggerating when I say it turned into a part-time job for them. Every day, I'd receive at least a dozen links to ludicrous houses, large homes with 4 or 5 bedrooms, pools, 3-car garages, and the works. It was as if they assumed I was looking for a reality TV mansion. One day, Mom texted, "Did you see that one on Maple Street? It's a huge one, just perfect." Another time, Anna emailed me a link to a 6-bedroom property with a remark that read, "This would be so suitable for us. We finally have space to spread out. United States." I stared at the message for a good minute, wondering how my property purchase had become a collaborative endeavor. What is the worst part? They were not even pretending it was about me. Every place they recommended was oriented toward Anna's family. This one has a finished basement, Josh could turn it into his man cave. The kids would love the pool in this one. Look, Kate. There's even a guest room for Mom and Dad when they visit. It was exhausting. At first, I attempted to gently lead them away, assuring them that I was only shopping for something modest for myself. But that simply made matters worse. That's when I decided to cease responding. I silenced the group chat and disregarded their messages. I assumed they would finally get the point and move on. Meanwhile, I continued searching for houses on my own. I spent my evenings reading through Zillow and my weekends looking at open houses. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, and I avoided anything slightly related to Anna's area. I didn't want to run into anyone who might tell my mother. After weeks of looking, I finally found it, a little 2-bedroom cottage just outside the city. It had everything I desired. A nice little porch, a sunny kitchen, and a lawn large enough for a garden. It wasn't elegant, but it felt familiar. The moment I stepped through the door, I knew it was mine. I submitted an offer, and after a few nerve-wracking days, it was approved. I can't even explain how fantastic it felt. For the first time in my life, I was doing something solely for myself, with no influence from anyone. Of course, I did not inform my family. I decided to let them keep delivering their helpful suggestions while I silently moved forward. But then my mother called me out of nowhere. "We're having dinner next weekend. You're coming, right?" I nearly said no. But then I had a thought. You know what? Let's get this over with. So I'm going to this dinner, and I already know what it will be like. They'll probably have a full PowerPoint presentation prepared. Here comes the fun part. I'm about to reveal that I've already purchased a home. I won't sugarcoat it either. I can already hear theatrical gasps and complaints. Thank you for sticking around. I'll send you an update after dinner. Update 1. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who left comments and advice on my previous article. I promised to update you after dinner, so here we go. Buckle up, because there was a lot. So I arrived at my folks' place last Saturday at precisely 6 p.m., mentally prepared for whatever rubbish they were about to throw at me. The moment I went in, there was already commotion. The kids were shouting, Josh was sitting on the couch watching TV, and my mother was busy in the kitchen. She looked over and said, "Oh good, you're on time for once. We are off to a good start, right?" We sat down for supper and the conversation began with the normal small talk. Dad complained about gas prices, Josh about something at work, and Anna about how difficult it was to manage 3 children. "Noah keeps waking up in the middle of the night," she explained, scooping mashed potatoes onto her plate. "We're just so cramped. I feel like I'm losing my mind." I knew where this was going, but I played along, nodding sympathetically while concentrating on my lasagna. Then my mother cleared her throat in the manner she did before making an announcement. "Kate," she replied with a huge smile, "we've been talking, and we think we found the perfect house for you." I almost choked on my water. Of course, they'd arrive with a plan. "Oh?" I asked, keeping my tone as neutral as possible. "Yes," Anna chimed in. "It's a beautiful place, and it's only a few blocks from us. It has 5 bedrooms, a huge yard for the kids, and even a guest suite." Mom interrupted before I could respond. "It's perfect for everyone. There's enough space for the kids to finally have their own rooms, and Josh could even set up an office. Plus, it's in such a great neighborhood, close to good schools. I just stared at them, bewildered. They weren't even pretending it was about me anymore. So, Anna replied, smiling as if everything was settled, we can go see it tomorrow if you want. That's when I decided I'd had it. Actually, I responded, setting down my fork. I've already bought a house. The room went completely silent. Even the children stopped making noise. What? Mom asked, her voice harsh. I bought a house, I reiterated. It's a small, 2-bedroom cottage just outside the city. It's perfect for me. For a little moment, I considered whether they would be pleased for me. Mom's face turned red, and Anna's mouth virtually dropped to the floor. A cottage? Anna finally asked, her tone full of skepticism. How are we supposed to fit in a cottage? You're not, I informed you, because it's my house. I bought it for me. Mom stepped in before Anna could react. Kate, how could you make such a big decision without consulting us? We've been working so hard to find the perfect place for you. No, I replied, trying to maintain my cool. You've been working hard to find the perfect place for Anna and her family. I didn't need your help. I knew what I wanted, and I bought it. Anna's voice became quite high-pitched, as if she were about to cry. But we need this, Kate. Do you know how hard it is for us in that tiny apartment? The kids have to share a room, and Noah's crib is in our bedroom. It's not fair to them. I took a big breath, hoping not to lose it. That's not my problem, Anna. I've worked hard to get to this point, and I'm not giving up my dream house to fix your situation. That's when Dad decided to join in. He smashed his hand upon the table. You're being selfish, Kate. Family is supposed to help each other. What's wrong with you? I stood up, my heart racing. I'm not selfish. I'm finally standing up for myself. And if that makes me the bad guy in your eyes, so be it. The place erupted into turmoil. Anna was crying. Mom was ranting about how she had raised me better. Dad was complaining about how dissatisfied he was. Josh sat there, stuffing food into his mouth as if nothing was occurring. I grabbed my handbag and went to the door. Mom pursued me, crying, "You can't just walk away from your family like this." I turned back and screamed, "Watch me." I then got into my car and drove home, shivering with rage and relief. Things have gotten out of hand in unexpected ways. My mother and Anna have both gone on full social media attack mode. Anna shared images of her children packed close on their bunk bed with remarks like, "All they want is a little space to grow, but I guess some people think family isn't worth helping anymore." People who didn't know the complete situation left remarks such as, "How could anyone be so heartless?" To make matters worse, someone, probably Lisa, saw these posts, and now half of my office is talking about how I abandoned my family. I'm attempting to maintain a positive attitude and concentrate on my work, but it's becoming increasingly difficult. I'm bracing myself for whatever comes next, but I'm confident I made the correct decision. This house is mine, and I will not back down. I'll provide an update if something significant occurs. Thank you so much for all of your help. You have no idea how much it has meant. Update 2, I've been going over your comments, and wow, you guys didn't hold back. Many of you expressed surprise at how entitled my family sounds, and believe me, I share your sentiments. Others shared their experiences with similar situations, and it's reassuring to know I'm not alone in this. So, things have taken an unexpected turn. My mother unexpectedly visited my apartment yesterday. She was standing there with an apple pie, not my favorite, I prefer cherry, and the fakest smile I'd ever seen. "Hi Kate, I thought I'd stop by and see how you're doing," she said, as if she hadn't been part of the social media mob attacking me in weeks. Against my better judgment, I allowed her in. She placed the pie on the counter and gazed around my home as if she were taking inventory. "I wanted to apologize," she began, her voice full of fake sweetness. "Things got a little heated, and I realize now that we were wrong to push you like that. You've worked hard for this house, and I should have respected your decisions." Something about her tone did not sit well with me. Then she launched into a lengthy speech about how pleased she was of me and how the stress of Anna's condition had caused everyone to behave out. "But that's no excuse," she added, giving me a sad, almost imploring expression. "I was thinking maybe we could have a fresh start. I'd love to come over again sometime, maybe bring Anna and the kids. It'd be nice for everyone to see your new place." So there it was. The actual motive behind her visit. After she went, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Later that night, I recognized what was bothering me. She'd spent an unusual amount of time inspecting my locks and inquiring about my relocation timeline. My suspicions were verified when I returned home from work today and discovered my spare key missing, the one I had mistakenly left on the kitchen counter during my mother's stay. My phone vibrated just as I was processing this. My next-door neighbor sent me a text. "Hey, I noticed some folks trying to peep into your windows last night. It looked like a couple with children. Is everything okay? I quickly phoned a locksmith to replace all of the locks. I'll also install security cameras first thing tomorrow morning. I can't believe they would go this low, but I'm also not surprised. I've stopped answering phone calls and texts from anyone in my family. Mom's apology was obviously simply a reconnaissance operation, and I'm done giving them the benefit of the doubt. The disturbing issue is that I don't think they'll stop. Dad left a voicemail stating, "This isn't over, Kate. Family has to stick together, whether you like it or not." At this point, it seems like a threat rather than a concern. I'm currently documenting everything, every text, voicemail, and suspicious incident. My gut tells me I'll need this record shortly. I will keep you updated if anything else happens. Reddit, thank you for all of your support. It's incredibly helpful to have folks confirm that I'm not insane for demanding fundamental boundaries. Update 3. Hello Reddit, I never imagined I'd be posting this update, but here we are. What happened today has left me absolutely disturbed, and I am still trying to digest everything. I went out this morning to conduct some basic tasks, such as food shopping and picking up a box from the post office. When I arrived home at noon, I saw something peculiar. Anna's SUV was parked directly in front of my house. My heart sunk immediately. I approached the door, fumbling with my keys, and heard voices within. Anna, Josh, and the kids were at my place. The atmosphere inside was complete mayhem. Sophia and Lucas were sprawled on my couch, surrounded by munchies and toys. Noah was toddling about my living room, munching on a throw cushion. Josh was in the kitchen, looting my refrigerator, and Anna was in the sunroom, rearranging my furniture as if she were on HGTV. What the hell's going on? I managed to reply, my voice shaking from fury and disbelief. Anna looked up, unaffected. Oh hey, Kate, we figured it'd be easier to just move in while you were out. I glanced at her, trying to understand what she had just said. Move in? Mom gave us the key, she explained, nodding to the kitchen counter. We truly needed the space, and your home is ideal for us. It could have been bigger if you'd listened to us, but we'll make it happen. Josh can now have an office instead of bickering. Instead of arguing, I took out my phone and dialed 911. Seriously? Anna replied, her voice full of incredulity. Are you calling the cops on your own family? Watch me. When the cops arrived, Anna and Josh attempted to argue that because we were family, this was not a true break-in. The officers wouldn't have it. They informed them that they were trespassing and needed to leave immediately. Anna began crying, saying she didn't realize it was such a huge deal, and Josh muttered something about my being selfish as they packed away their belongings, including the goodies they had plundered from my cupboard. After they went, one of the officers approached me and asked if I wanted to file charges. I considered it for a time before deciding against it, as long as they stayed away from my land. The officer nodded, saying they'd file a report if anything more happened. I've already phoned a locksmith to change the locks again, and I'll have a security system put in tomorrow. I've also hired a lawyer to create an official cease and desist letter to deliver to my parents, Anna and Josh. The letter describes everything they've done and expresses that if they continue to harass me, I will not hesitate to take legal action. I still can't believe my own sister felt this was appropriate and my mother gave them the key. I don't even have words for it. I will keep you updated if anything else happens, but perhaps this is the final straw. I am done giving them opportunities. Blood is not always thicker than water, particularly when it is dangerous. Update 4. I'd like to begin by thanking everyone who has followed this wild trip. After all of your comments and support, I believe I owe you a final report on the issue. Yes, I mean final, because I have formally severed all relations with my family. First came the guilt-inducing phone calls. Every single relative, including those I hadn't spoken to in years, began phoning me. My aunt, who hardly recognized my existence growing up, left a voicemail that read, "How can you do this to your sister? Family has to stick together." Then, my parents launched a smear campaign in our town. Mom shared photos of my house on Facebook, I'm not sure how she obtained them, with sentiments like, "It's so sad when someone forgets where they came from. Family sacrifices so much for you, and this is how they repay you." People who didn't know the complete scenario left comments accusing me of being ungrateful and selfish. Last week, Anna took it to a new level. She arrived at my business at lunch hour with all 3 children. I was in a meeting when our receptionist called to report that my sister was crying in the lobby and raising a disturbance. By the time I arrived, half of my coworkers had gathered to witness Anna theatrically tell how I was leaving her children homeless. I drew her aside and ordered her to leave. She responded by letting the kids run around the office while yelling about how I had plenty of space but was too selfish to share. Security had to take them out, and I had to have an embarrassing chat with my manager about keeping my personal concerns out of the office. The final straw arrived yesterday. My parents scheduled an intervention at their home. They informed my grandmother that I was suffering a mental breakdown and required family support. When I declined to attend, they attempted to have a local preacher visit my house to educate me on my family commitments. After consulting with my attorney, I took serious legal action. I applied for a restraining order against Anna and Josh, citing all of their harassment and the break-in. My lawyer also issued legal cease and desist letters to my parents regarding their social media posts and harassment. I've established a comprehensive security system that includes cameras and motion sensors, as well as changed my phone number and email address, which I exclusively share with trusted friends and my job. All of my social media accounts are now set to rigorous privacy settings, banning not only my family but also their friends and anyone who may feed them information. The most weird aspect of all of this is that they still appear to believe they are correct. My mother sent me one final email before I banned her, stating I was hurting her heart and that she had raised me better than this. She still doesn't get that this isn't about being mean or selfish. It is about setting basic boundaries and respecting oneself. But, you know what? For the first time in my life, I actually feel free. My house is just as I want it. I've started planting a garden in my backyard, which I'd always wanted to do but never had the space for. I'm making friends with my neighbors, those who don't report back to my family. I even adopted a cat, who is now snoozing in my sunny window. She is also not obligated to share her space with anyone she does not want to. Last weekend, I had a little housewarming celebration with some of my coworkers. We sipped wine and cheese on my lovely small porch, and no one said I needed more room or questioned my life choices. It was simply normal, joyful, and serene. I know some people may read this and think I'm callous for cutting off my family, but after 27 years of being treated as a backup plan, an ATM, and a solution to everyone else's issues, I'm finally putting myself first. Recognizing that family is more than simply blood, it's about respect, limits, and mutual support, can be the healthiest thing you can do. What about the house that sparked all of this drama? It's become my haven. Every morning, I wake up in my house, decorated exactly how I want it, with no one else's expectations to meet but my own, and I know I made the correct decision. Thank you to everyone on Reddit who has supported me on this trip. Your comments, guidance, and shared experiences helped me keep going when I was doubting myself. To those who shared similar stories, you helped me realize I wasn't alone in demanding fundamental boundaries. And to those who are now suffering with similar familial problems, remain strong. You deserve to live your life on your own terms. I probably won't be updating my tale anymore, partially because I've cut off all communication with my family and partly because I'm ready to go on with my life. But I'll still be on Reddit, possibly assisting others who are in similar positions. Thank you all again. Your encouragement meant more than you'll ever realize. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.